Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience, where today, JimCornette.com is on the air, and so is Rhodes to the Top. And when it went on the air, I decided to quit breathing it. Plus, AEW goes from the penthouse to the outhouse and back again on the same show. All that today and more. And now to join me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, and Last's premier porta potties. When you need to shit in a porta potty, go Last. The great Brian Last, everybody. Hey, don't flip your wig, Brian.
Aloha, Jim. I won't be flipping my wig, and it's Porto-san. Let's get the name of the company correct, but it's a pleasure to be here once again for another action-packed hours and hours and hours of the Jim Cornette Experience.
Well, we may not do that today. I don't know. I'm in one of those moods where I'm afraid I'm not going to take anything seriously today on the program. I'm slappy, but in a good way. I've alluded to it at the top of the program. We are recording today on Saturday, early in the day, but last night, the all-new, the invincible, the ultimate JimCornette.com debuted on the air and actually stayed up. It didn't crash. Not only that, but it's gotten rave reviews. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's state-of-the-art. The shopping experience is wonderful. People are praising Hotchkiss Featherbottom. He's gotten both of his fingers back. I kept them in ice, and just to make sure, because I didn't want to keep anything. If he came through, I didn't want to keep any of his appendages.
You may make a lot of money with this skill from ex-Yakuza guys. The ability to reattach fingers?
I did study. I said I gave him back to him. I didn't reattach them. I just handed them back to him. What he does with them from here is of his own volition. But I did study my Japanese tapes back in the 80s, so I'm pretty good with the finger removal. And plus, he was starting with an extra one to begin with and only took two, so he was only down one. Anyway, nevertheless, that's the good news is this thing is slicker than cum on a gold tooth, and it took the pounding. We did in the first, I think it was 90 minutes, we did over 500 individual orders, and this is leading into the bad news. As of now, we've topped 1,000 individual orders in less than 18 hours. And the original action figure, as predicted, did not withstand the onslaught and it was sold out by like 11 o'clock last night. Because there was a little bit less than 300 of those. The variant, the Christmas variant, with me in my jolly red and green outfit, ho-ho-hoing around, there's still... that we started with 900 and something. There's still around 500-ish, but I checked a little while ago. So those are going quickly. So that the bad news is, if you want something, but I mean, the T-shirts are still available. A couple of the books sold out, but Behind the Curtain is still available. And this was an onslaught of epic proportions on a variety of the merchandise. So just as a friendly, helpful hint from me to you, I know you guys been waiting for this stuff for so long, but within the next 48 hours, if things keep up like this, we're going to be in danger of me not being able again to perpetrate this shit to their rightful owners between now and Christmas. So this is coming out on a Sunday evening or thereabouts. Is that true, Brian?
Thereabouts.
This program.
Yes.
Thereabouts.
On Sunday, but possibly in the evening. Correct.
Not trying to pin you down or anything.
Can't pin me.
But we're going to try to stay open through Monday, folks. But please, get it in if you want to get in. And everybody's getting their stuff. And boy, the confirmation emails are going out. The whole thing's working. And just come and see the site, by the way. See the sites. Just come and see the sites. Go out jacking it in San Diego.
Oh, enough with the jacking it. I went to the website, I looked at the podcast section. Thoroughly impressed with those beautiful descriptions of the shows. Fantastic job, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And the wonderful dulcet shades of color and pastels that Hotchkiss has splashed about. It's not as jarring and off-putting as the new NXT stuff. It's very subdued and beautiful, artistic even.
Can he do that for April Fools? Like we just turn your site into an NXT colored site?
Well, I don't want to rip off the WWE's idea because I thought that's what they were doing with their program was an April Fool. But we'll talk about that later on.
That's their new logo, Endless April Fools.
Well, I'll go along with the Fools, but it could be evergreen. Any season, folks, we're still foolish. But anyway, yes, so JimCornette.com. Just look around. You can go to the YouTube channel. You can go to the Patreon page. You can go to the Twitter page. You can go to the, as you mentioned, the podcast. It's the center of the universe. And merchandise will be available for maybe another 48 hours or so. And then I'm going to be catching up until Christmas. We'll keep it open as long as we can. As long as I'm feeling as froggy as I am right now and thinking I can get this knocked out. We'll keep it, but the action figures are not replenishable, so get that variant while you can. Good Lord, an update on the art controversy. And this is, and I know it's a tribute to Travis Heckle, actually, it really is, but it's also indicative of people's, I don't know, not personalities, but the way people are these days. Because we started, obviously, putting up the guest artists when Travis got sick here a little while back. And, by the way, we mentioned he's either going uphill or downhill. We'll get to that in a second, but whichever is
going
in the
uphill.
direction.
Uphill.
I still don't see how going uphill can be a good thing health-wise, but nevertheless. Maybe that's what caused his heart to start palpitating to begin with. He was constantly going uphill.
Will you stop it?
Anyway, so, but it's a tribute to Travis, and it shows how people are, that when we first started putting up the guest art, there was no warning of this because we had just done a podcast. And it's not like Travis had called us a couple weeks beforehand and said, hey guys, I'm planning on taking ill on such and such a date, so can you line up some people? No, obviously, by the nature of the thing, you don't know when you're going to be ill. So that's, if you did, then you could fix yourself, right? Beforehand, do some preventative maintenance. Anyway, so nevertheless, the artwork started going up, the guest artists, and people they had the pitchforks and the torches. What have you done with Travis? What the fuck is that? Like we had fired Travis, right? And then people started getting the word, and they were spreading the word that he was ill and he'd be back soon. And, well, we're not sure because they didn't trust anything because everything in the wrestling and podcasting business is a work. So they didn't trust it. And then finally, when we were able to come on the air the past couple of shows and say, look, yes, Travis he's mending. He'll be back thanks to our guests. Now, all of a sudden, when people have got that word, you go and look at the comments and the feedback on everything. Oh, these guys, they're incredible. What talented people. As long as they know that Travis has not been iggyed out of the situation. But beforehand, they were like, these motherfuckers, they couldn't draw fucking money with paper and green crayons. See, it's how you present things. People don't like their routines disturbed. And Travis's style and manner of rending things, boy, in a lot of cases, this show does deserve rending, and the artwork as well. But the way he does renditions of these things, it's become iconic. It's identified with the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, which, by the way, just crossed 250,000 subscribers. And so they love him, and that's why I think some of our guest artists who have been critiqued, Brian, should not take it to heart when they were in a tight situation there. They were it was like we tried to replace Darren on Bewitched with fucking Dick Sargent, and it took a while for people to get the message.
That's right, and I think everyone right now is really appreciating some of the incredibly talented people who have been submitting art to the channel, and people understand that Travis is ill. No one replaces Travis. We're right now just featuring guest artists until Travis is better.
Either that, or if Aiden has picked up Travis's talent, then we could have Aiden do it, and we could just boot Travis to the curb. But that's later on.
And fortunately, the listeners only ran off one artist. Only one guy was scared enough to go AWOL But everyone else is still contributing and working on ideas.
No, seriously, hold on. Before you mention anybody else, I'm not going to say the guy's name or even the assumed name that we offered to give him. But this poor guy, he was all excited, and he was the first one to do the guest art, and that was the most jarring.
Well, he wasn't the first one. No, he wasn't.
He was one of the first two. But it was when it was jarring, and people didn't know that Travis was sick and thought there'd been some breakup, and they just hounded this poor guy until he actually did go AWOL, and we haven't heard from him since. He's like, I can't do this anymore. Poor fella.
Very talented guy, too. Very, very talented guy, but everyone has been, and I spoke to Travis yesterday. He said he was going to watch SmackDown and Rampage, and I told him I didn't realize just how sick he was.
Yeah.
But he is on the mend. He is getting better. He is progressing each and every day, and we hope to have him back on the channel as soon as possible. But we've had so many amazing guest artists. We've talked about some of them on the last couple episodes. Want to plug a few more. We'll tell you more about some of the other ones on the drive-thru. But Danny Williams, and you can get in touch with Danny at DannyWillDraw.com, has submitted some fantastic art, and we really appreciate it. Also want to make mention of Maurice Freeman, and you can access his art at Instagram or on Instagram at Instagram.com/the_freedom_of_man. There has to be an easier way, ladies and gentlemen, to get these websites across. And one final artist who's also done some great work, Mike Benchick. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. BENCIC. And his website is Instagram.com/PO Whiskey. And there's a dot between the PO, like Magnum TA, P.O. Whiskey. Mike Benchick, Instagram.com/PO Whiskey. And Mike and Maurice Freeman and Danny Williams and so many others have done such a great job. We really appreciate all their work, and we look forward to doing more things in the future with a lot of our artists. And we'll tell you more about, like I said, other artists on the drive-thru this week.
Yes, and we've got some, now that we know all these talented people, we got some other projects in mind. But what was Mike's last name, did you say?
I believe Benchick.
How do you spell it?
BENCIC.
Well, it could be been sick.
It could be.
Which is the same thing as Travis. He's been sick.
Oh, come on.
But later on, he'll be Mike Benwell.
Very good.
All righty then. We're just going to start calling Travis Trademark Travis, though, because he's like a trademark of our programming here. So anyway, I got a couple of emails. Hold on here. I got to bring a couple of these things up. Yeah. Let me talk to you like Walter Cronkite here, because you have a dressing down coming to you, sir.
Me?
Yes, you. Who else am I talking to here?
I don't know. Are you Walter Cronkite or Jim Cornette? I'm not sure exactly what you're doing.
I'm Walter Cronkite. I'm going to in the stentorian voice here. No, this is a very stern email to you. Actually, the subject is you. The email came to the program from James. But even though his name is James, he has a girl's name in his email address.
That's a good start. Okay.
Maybe he's using somebody else. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, Brian, I take great offense to what you said when talking about Cody and Brandy's reality show. You said that it's going to show them balancing parenting and work, and then you said things that all of us balance. Where do you get off assuming that everyone has kids and a job? There are millions of adults with no children and millions of adults who are unemployed. You should have said things that a lot of us balance. There are millions of adults, and all these millions are in capitals, by the way. There are millions of adults in this country with severe mental health issues who aren't able to do any of those things. A lot of who still live with their parents. A lot who have been handicapped since birth and can't do those things. And some of those people just happen to listen to your show. How dare you insult them and make them feel left out and unworthy by announcing that, in capitals, all of us have kids and a job. It's a God-given right. If you don't have those things, there's something wrong with you. I'm really sick of this attitude among people. Are you going to apologize?
No, I'll take the dressing down. I don't know what else to say. But, sometimes...
Well, you said it just like that. All of us have kids and jobs. It's a God-given right. If you don't have those things, there's something wrong with you.
That wasn't what I said. I think what I was saying was that they're trying to act like they're special for balancing these things that everyone who has kids and a job balances. I didn't mean to upset another one of these Bixes over here with assuming that some of us have normal lives. Oh, my God.
We're going to have to bleep that on YouTube now. The name you just called him, for heaven's sake. You can't use that kind of language on a podcast.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, just modify your behavior in the future when you're talking about things that all these people do.
I'm proudly unemployed and I have no family at all. Who are you to ridicule me? Well, I wasn't, ma'am. Or sir, I don't even know what he was. Or she was. Who is this person?
I don't know this person. It was a man's first name and initial that it came from, and a woman's name with letters and things in the email address. So possibly it was some kid that was using their parents' email address to dress you down about having to balance kids and lives and things.
I've learned my lesson.
Speaking of kids, congratulations to Zach from Owensboro, Kentucky, who sent in an email. He's been an on and off listener for a while. They recently had their first baby, but they ended up spending 2 weeks in I don't know what the abbreviation stands for, but the baby intensive care unit. And after the first few days, he said he wasn't able to stay in the hospital overnight, so he was driving back and forth from the hospital to home and or sitting at home alone waiting for news on the baby, so he was listening to us to take his mind off of things. But now the baby is well and everybody's back home. So congratulations, Zach, in Owensboro.
Mazel tov. Zach.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
I thought it was Mazel tov.
It's a Mazel tov cocktail. Yes, that's right.
No, I've heard people say Mazel tov as well as Molotov.
Yeah, what Jew have you heard say that?
Well, I didn't ask for their fucking credentials or do you carry a card around or how are you identified?
No. And it's hard to tell because some of us are really cool and, some of us are Gary Juster. So you never really know.
Oh, my God, I think I just had a miscarriage. That actually was... That was the ringtone that Stacy put on my cell phone when I was in Ring of Honor for when Gary Juster would call. Mort Goldman on Family Guys. Oh, I think I just had a miscarriage. Anyway, also, we have some more congratulations in order to the Bowlback family.
The who?
The Bowlback family. Bollbach.
Oh, okay.
Bowlback, I believe I was right because the whole family's in on this, right? Apparently in March, when I did the first round of Cameo video messages, Brian Bowlback ordered one of the first ones that I did back then for his brother Chris, who was getting married, who just got married in September, and hid it from him for all that time and then played it at the wedding. And I got long emails from both brothers. I don't know why they thought I'd be this interested, but I'm fucking with you guys. But anyway, Chris and his beautiful bride, Lindsay, got married, but I wanted to read a couple of excerpts from these long emails. They were going to get married last year, but Lindsay is an ICU nurse in Westchester County, which was one of the early epicenters of the COVID outbreak. So they postponed an entire year. So that not only could she get through all that, but then hopefully things, would stabilize once an adult was in charge, is what he said. And now it has, except for all the people that won't get vaccinated. But anyway, Chris wrote, I wouldn't say my girlfriend, then fiance, now wife, was an immediate fan of yours, as she didn't have the emotional connection to wrestling that we did. Nevertheless, she was happy that we were happy, talking about him and his brother. I started to keep a list of my favorite Cornette-isms. While she was tickled by the occasional, didn't know whether to wind my ass or scratch my watch, I quickly realized that maybe she was not the key demo for, you're fucking this dog, I'm just holding its head. But you live and learn. But anyway, they had the the wedding and the bachelor party was great. They ate their way through Wildwood, New Jersey, viewed the cameo, had the wedding, etc. From Brian, the brother. He wrote me also to thank me, basically the same story, but also he said, while my brother and I are members of the cult, I think it's safe to say that our wives are not, with one of them quoted as saying, your voice is their least favorite sound on earth.
Wow.
So hopefully, I won't be named in any kind of divorce proceedings later on. But anyway, congratulations to the Bowlbacks. And do you think all the way through senior year of high school, at least, they were the Ballbag brothers?
I don't know about that, but I was going to say how impressive what you read before was, because I don't think anyone has eaten their way through Wildwood since Gino Moore.
Well, Gino had a head start because he started munching in Camden.
See, that is funny. Anyone who knows how the state is laid out, that is funny.
All righty. Well, speaking of being laid out, and we won't spend too much time on this, but just to acknowledge, because of all the people sending us tweets and screenshots so that we'd cut a promo on the poor old fella again. And I'm not. Uncle Dave is off his meds again on Twitter, and apropos of nothing, apparently he argued with random fans about me for several hours the other day. And the only thing I can say is Tony Khan liked my swimsuit picture on Facebook, and now Uncle Dave's drawing black cats on my pictures. He's regressed to being a 14-year-old girl in 9th grade. I guess he'd have been left back once if he was. Well, he probably was.
Well,
I don't know.
Depends on when your birthday is in the calendar year. That's when you know how old you would be. You know, I was young for my age. I was 13 in 9th grade, but 14.
You were young for your age?
In school, in grades. I was always the youngest one in my grade.
Rewind it. Don't try to justify that nonsensical statement you just made. You can say I was young for my grade.
I was young for my grade.
You cannot say I was young.
I was young for my age. This time machine I had built had fucked everything up. But that's why you could possibly be 14 and in 9th grade.
I don't know. I think, honestly, I've known Uncle Dave for a long time, and since we were kids, as a matter of fact, and when he graduated 6th grade, he was so excited he could hardly shave without cutting himself.
If he reacts like this for whatever else is going on, how do you think he's going to react when Tony shows you his tits?
Oh, my gosh. Shh, don't say anything. there was that one little time that we were playing Sticky Finger, and
it's so weird. Anytime people just start praising you, all of a sudden, this voice just comes out. No, not him.
You don't understand. I thought this was settled last year. I thought I told you that you can't listen to anything he says because he's out of touch.
Unfortunately, everyone listens. Sorry.
But it's like Steve Allen. Do they get your program in Cleveland? Well, they watch it. I'm not sure they get it.
That's great. That's right.
Oh, boy. But you know what, Brian? I think that if somebody spends all their time on Twitter arguing with random people that they don't know about someone else that they used to know until he told them to fuck off, maybe they should get a painting made of themselves and that person to put on the wall, and that way they could have memories of that great relationship. What do you think?
What an interesting concept. I think it's a great idea. The question becomes, if that person did in fact get that painting, would it be the two people as they are now, or would it be them in their younger days, footloose and fancy-free?
Well, you could really pick, although now that I think about it, if he was to put a painting of me as I appear now on his wall, I would probably have to sue for infringement on my intellectual property. But nevertheless, I'll tell you what you can do, folks. You can get a portrait of your life as it was, as it is, or as you would like it to be. And imagine how much territory that takes in, courtesy of the folks at paintyourlife.com. And the reason I bring this up is because I got an email right here from Jack from Ipswich in the United Kingdom. Ipswich is a very lovely place. I believe we drove through there when I was over there. Anyway, Jack from Ipswich says, hearing the vocal intercourse between you two, meaning me and you, Brian, gives me hours of laughter and really calms me. But he also went on to say that I lost my mother at the very end of 2017, and through the fine sponsor you have at Paint Your Life, I got my dad an amazing gift as an oil painting of my mother. It meant a ton to me not only to see him love the painting, but to see both of you guys retweet the picture I posted of the painting and his subsequent reaction to it. You remember we did that a couple weeks ago.
No, it was longer than that. I think that was even longer ago than that.
It might have been. Well, we've done a couple.
Yeah.
So this may have, one or the other. But anyway, thank you, Jack. And that's what Paint Your Life does, as we've mentioned. They've got a team of world-class artists that you can work with till you get the details down. They've got a user-friendly platform, much like the new JimCornette.com. It's so friendly, it's positively overt, even forward. But anyway, it might even be on the verge of grabbing you on the ass when you're not looking.
Puts its own phone number on the bathroom wall.
Yeah, there you go. I'll tell you what, you just go in bathrooms and write paintyourlife.com on the wall of the bathroom.
Paint it.
You don't need numbers like that anymore because you can create your own reality right here. Anyway.
Don't write it on the walls, though. Paint it on the walls.
Well, paint it, write it. Paint Your Life might paint the walls, but if you're just going in the bathroom to shit and write stuff on the walls, you've probably just got a ballpoint pen or maybe a Sharpie. You're not going in there completely prepared with an easel and a palette, all the different paint colors.
That's our next art contest for the website. The bathroom stall painting contest.
There you go. Well, Paint Your Life won't paint your barn, but it will paint your life. And you can write paintyourlife.com on the walls of bathrooms to give more people the idea. I don't know what they might want painted, but hey, you know what? It's your life. Anyway, folks, you can receive that portrait of you or your little dinghy or whatever you require in as little as 2 weeks. And you can send any picture of yourself, your children, your family, a special place, a lost loved one, a cherished pet, a shot of you in action. That's actually what it says on the copy. I'm not sure what kind of action you'd be performing, especially if you got this fucking website off a bathroom wall. But nevertheless, we haven't really pushed them on candid photography, folks, but they take pictures and they make paintings out of them, and you can combine generations of your family and people who weren't in the same place at the same time from numerous pictures, photographs, and you can make a painting out of that, or they can. You're still in the bathroom. Anyway, folks, if you go to paintyourlife.com, there is no risk. There is absolutely no risk at paintyourlife.com because they put those toilet seat covers down, and now I'm back to the bathroom now. There's no risk here either. Everything's covered. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And right now, as a limited time offer, you can get 20% off your painting. 20%. That's double 10% off and free shipping. To get the special offer, though, you got to text the word DRIVE, DRIVE, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64 with 3 zeros behind it. Drive to 64,000, and that way you get 20% off, the free shipping. Create your own reality, folks. Take some psychedelic drugs and just think of something you'd like as a picture, and get pictures of your family and put them on the goddamn spaceship with the Robinson family in Lost in Space. That might be mushrooms. If you're going for the Owsley acid, like they had it at Woodstock, you'd probably want something more colorful. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know I just want to say for the record, Paint Your Life in no way endorses any sort of drug use or has anything to do with the use of drugs. I guess unless you're in a place where it's legal, and there are places now that are legalizing psychedelic drugs, actually.
Well, see, make your painting there. Paint yourself.
I need to do my show there. Get
yourself painted in a place where you did the psychedelic drugs and relive that trip. Anyway, folks, I'll guarantee you one thing. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms. But you can text DRIVE to 64,000 and save some fucking money. So do that.
And let us see your paintings. Whatever you get, let us actually see the work.
Or send us your drugs, one or the other.
No. Do not send drugs in the mail. Do not associate drugs with this fine product, which is Paint Your Life. Terms apply at paintyourlife.com.
What are those terms? Have you ever read them?
You know, I haven't. We should probably read them on the air one of these days.
Hold on. Let me click these things.
No, you're not.
Oh, geez. The type is so small. It's a bunch of stuff about your submissions and that they'll take care of them.
All right.
But it's not for children under the age of 16 years, this website. Please do not use or visit the site. There's no candid photography or nudity or pornography. They just don't want you little rugrats stealing your parents' credit cards and trying to get by with something. So anyway, terms apply. Well, this past week's episode of Dark Side of the Ring was on the FMW promotion and specifically at Sushi Onita. And, you know, I always try to go into these episodes like I'm watching it because I'd usually know a significant part of the story. Maybe not have heard everybody's firsthand testimony, but whatever the subject is, I have some working knowledge of it. So I try to go in watching it like it's the first time that I've, seen this. So I kind of get an idea of how the average viewer is reacting to it, right? That doesn't have the historical knowledge about wrestling. In this case, I pretty much was seeing a lot of this stuff for the first time because I've seen the clips of the ring blow up with Onita and Terry, obviously, because that, went everywhere at the time on VHS and blah, blah, blah. But I never watched any FMW shows in full, have just seen a few highlights. So some of this shit was, and I had to think again, what do normal people who might wander across that show, or what does even normal wrestling fans from this country that used to watch normal wrestling and maybe watch, Dark Side because they've been attracted to some of the names from the past and they got hooked on the show or whatever. What have they got to be thinking? Because, the one thing I said a week or two ago on whatever show we previewed this, and we were talking to Evan Husney, at least he made money with it, Onita. He was, as far as and I think I asked you this the other day, Brian, so hop right in here again. Remind me, because I'm old and feeble. What did you say? Is this the only garbage match promotion that actually ever made significant money anywhere in the world?
Probably.
One would think.
Because I don't know if IWA ever really made much money, even though they did have the stadium show. Wing, I don't think made any fucking money. ECW, we know about their finances. Well, no, the indie stuff today isn't really making much money.
I'm not even going to group ECW. I'm talking about garbage death matches with barbed wire blowing up things on a regular basis, having going just to the extreme. So I don't group Extreme Championship Wrestling in that because even they didn't do that consistently as what did Mick Foley call it, a buffet of violence.
I guess that's what's crazy. In my eyes, as someone who grew up in that era, I almost see ECW and FMW as the class of the garbage style of wrestling. Because everything after them, that's when it really became Outlaw People.
Well, yeah.
Outlaw shows. That's when the Ian Rotten promotion started popping up and just taking things to a stupid level.
Yeah.
And we never really left that point. So I know what you're thinking. You've never seen this stuff before.
Because the emotionally stunted people that are attracted to that kind of thing grew up and actually became garbage match wrestlers, and then it's perpetuated itself. But I say I don't group ECW, even though they had some pretty garbage matches in terms of the barbed wire and the bullshit and everything. They also had Malenko and Guerrero, and they also had et cetera. So honestly, FMW was never known for, I don't think they promoted, nor did probably their audience ever want a classic wrestling match between top talent. The names that Onita used were Terry Funk, who he had befriended Onita when Onita first came to this country and went to Amarillo, and he knew him. And also, here's the thing that wasn't mentioned specifically, But Terry Funk in 1976, through that entire year, was the NWA World Champion that was one of 3 of the highest paid positions in wrestling, along with Andre the Giant and Bruno, right? And that was 1976. You go to 1993 or 94, whatever it was, 95, that era. Terry got paid as much for that exploding ring match as he made in a month as the NWA champion, wrestling 30 times and crisscrossing the country. So that's one of the, in addition to liking Onita, that's one of the reasons he did it, because they had the whatever Onita was doing, whoever was responsible for it, wherever the backing came from, et cetera, as Onita said, he was making $2 million a year for about 3 years there. And they could pay, and of course, where in those days, where Terry went, Cactus Jack went, because they were good friends. And also, that was at a point where Cactus was making payoffs for that shit that was bigger than I would assume some. Well, what year? He hadn't got to the WWF yet. He probably never made that much single event money, even in WCW. So, but otherwise than that, they didn't use names. They concentrated on the locals and the guys they could get from America to come and do death matches. Did they ever use any other names?
They used some guys, and again, FMW changed. They showed you when it first popped up at the height of the height of Maeda's UWF in 88, all of a sudden it was Onita versus martial artists, and then it just became all this.
Yeah. But anyway, so I guess for what I'm saying is that the only way that you can excuse it, because it was ridiculous, and it did lead to a lot of the ECW stuff, and also the guys who got into business at that time and looked up to guys like Terry and even Mick at that point, even though he wasn't as big as he'd get yet, you know, they wanted to do that shit, and then it begat, at least, again, Terry and Cactus were still trying to have a wrestling match in the middle of all the mayhem that made it look like that you were having a struggle with your opponent rather than just cooperation on cooperation with throwing each other through furniture and bashing each other with things. But the generations that came afterwards, if they didn't want to become wrestlers, mainstream wrestlers, professional wrestlers, but they thought, I can do this garbage shit because it doesn't hurt. You know, I've damaged my brain doing whatever in my life, so it doesn't hurt me when I do all this stuff. And it led to, as you said, just, you know, what we got since then, which is a bunch of guys in barns bashing each other with shit and taking bumps through light tubes and being airlifted. So I wasn't a fan of the wrestling, but at least you know, the style of wrestling, I should say, but at least you have to acknowledge that Onita, for a couple of years there, it was a phenomenon and he made money with it. And then some fan brought up, which wasn't really covered in the Dark Side episode, when they just said Onita decided to give the company to, he couldn't take it anymore. He give the company to the ring announcer. Why is a guy making $2 million a year, a big star like that, unless he knew something nobody else knew, why does he want to just give the company away and get out of the business? Something else was going on there, and I'm sure that one of these days we might find out. But
no mention of the Invader 1 angle, where he had him come over to set up a match and then pretended like he was stabbed by the man who murdered Bruiser Brody.
You know, and that would have been a good, then they could have juxtaposed that with footage from the Bruiser Brody episode. But, I mean, when you're going into tasteless things that Onita has done, you can't hit everything. But somebody said, well, and I as I mentioned last week on the show, I furnished them the footage of the Tupelo concession stand brawl that Onita and Fucci had with Gilbert and Morton, as well as some of their Memphis TV. They used a brief clip of it. And people are saying, well, hardcore wrestling was born in Tennessee. Well, that's not news. We've talked about the original Tupelo concession stand brawl, Lawler and Dundee against Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham, later Honky Tonk Man and Moondog Spot. That this brawl that Onita and Fucci were in was the third the third go-round. They were redoing that confrontation between Lawler and Dundee and the Blonde Bombers because that actually drew money, as we've mentioned. So it was born with that match, and then they had Gilbert and Morton do a rerun, which actually, this is one of the points. When Lawler and Dundee did it with Ferris and Latham, nobody had seen anything like it. It was Jerry Jarrett's idea to resurrect the territory when Robert Fuller had taken half the guys, gone back to Knoxville, and they were starting fresh with a brand new crew in the space of 3 days' time. And they shot that deal to carry the territory until they could get everybody else in place. And it worked. It tripled the houses around the territory in every town within a couple of weeks. And it was memorable. It was so memorable that they did it again about a year later with the Blonde Bombers and Ricky and Robert Gibson. And that did okay because the Gibson brothers were over already anyway in the territory, and it was a Southern Tag Team title program they were doing anyway, but it didn't set the world on fire because people had just seen it a year and a half before. Then they do it of the following year with Fucci and Onita and Gilbert and Morton, and that was the best one yet. There was more blood. There was more violence. It lasted longer. It was a rougher fight. That's where they didn't even smarten up. The local promoter in Tupelo. What was his name? The local promoter in Tupelo at that time, actually, he leased the building or either owned the building, and he had told him, he said, you can do whatever you want, but don't break my popcorn machine. But they didn't smarten his wife up. And his wife in the video, if anybody sees the uncut video, is the fat woman in the flowery top and the short pants that comes in and slaps Tojo Yamamoto in the middle of the fucking deal because she thinks that they're tearing up her concession stand. Anyway, that didn't do any business. It was the best one. It didn't do any business because the people had seen it. Neither one of those teams were main event guys at the time. They tried to put it on the main event in Memphis the week after that showed because it was such a big, fight. And it didn't do any business because, did I mention the people had seen it? And they'd seen it twice before now. And the guys weren't over, so it was just chaos for very little reason. Which is what we get today. When everybody has seen something and seen it overdone, it's chaos for no reason. And it doesn't affect business. Somebody asked, I guess this thing has taken on a life of its own because one person thought on Twitter that the Tupelo concession stand brawls, that they actually had the match in the concession stand, that they started out there and that was the point of it. That was what was advertised. And I've done it. No. When you went into Tupelo, the reason why they did these things in Tupelo is because the building was a piece of shit. It was an old, empty building that the kind when you go in the front door, you can build your own walls for dressing rooms. And I think it had been a paint and body shop at one point. And the fans would walk in the front door, and after you passed the ticket table, there was a lunchroom table set up where they sold tickets, and you walked into the building. On the left-hand side was the concession stand, and on the right-hand side were two doors, one for the babyface locker room, one for the heel locker room. Past that, it was just a big open building with chairs on the floor. So the fights in the concession stand came from the heels trying to get away and get back to the locker room, and the babyfaces catching them. And if they fought 5 feet to the left, they'd go in the locker room, but they fought 5 feet to the right, and they got in the concession stand. And that's how they ended up there. But it started as a regular match that got out of hand and then spread around the building, which makes more sense than we're going to have a match in the concession stand. But people would believe you'd do something like that because of today's wrestling. Anyway, so garbage wrestling was invented in Tennessee, but spread by people who didn't understand how it was applied and had just seen one thing that was done over a long period of time and suddenly thought, well, I can make a promotion out of this. And that's what happened. And you get diminishing returns because all it is shock. And once you can't sit and watch car wrecks just over and over, just a video of car wrecks with no context for 2 hours. Why? So, I mean, I don't know what else. I knew some of the stories, some I didn't. I hadn't seen all of the footage of everybody blowing up. I knew they nearly melted the Sheik because not only was that a big news story at the time, but also I just read Brian Solomon's book on the Sheik. What else was there that was shocking to you, Brian, as someone who paid more attention to that era in Japan?
What else was more shocking than the moment the Sheik got burned?
Well, I mean, what else was revelatory or that you might not have known or didn't remember anything? Or was it basically just a bunch of people getting blown up?
Yeah, no, I kind of knew everything they covered in the documentary. It didn't touch on new ground. But, it's around the period of time where things kept getting elevated. You remember the big video in 93, probably 92, 93. Remember in Wing, Matsunaga got his head lit on fire?
Yes.
In Hurricane Hall. There was that. There was a guy getting thrown off the balcony. Like one thing after another, after that Sheik Fire match, which I hadn't watched it in a few years. What a disaster. It was really cool to hear Sabu talk about it, quite frankly.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, a nice touch to hear him talk about throwing water on his burning uncle.
Yeah.
But it was just a period of time where FMW started and got success, and then Wing started taking it to at times a gross level, and it got ridiculous.
Well, and Kevin Sullivan was going over for Wing because Victor Quinones from Puerto Rico was involved in that promotion also and sending talent over there. And Victor and Kevin had worked closely, trading talent back and forth, Florida, blah, blah, blah. But that's when Kevin was working for me in Smoky Mountain, and he said, Victor is coming to the States it was Miguel Perez Jr., Crash the Terminator, who later became Hugh Morris, Bill DeMott, but at that time he was just going really mostly wrestling in Japan and overseas. God damn it, somebody else came with him, and then that Kanemura kid.
Yukiro Kanemura, yeah.
Yes, I couldn't remember his first name. It's been 28 years. But Kevin had told me, we were doing a thing where Kevin Sullivan, the master of this, squirrely group of nutcases, the Night Stalker and the Mongolian Mauler and the whole 9 yards. He was coming after Brian Lee, and he had debuted by using the golden spike. He pulled a spike out of his fucking robe, and he got juice on Brian Lee with the golden spike, right? And we were building to matches. We even had matches later on that summer where it was a Russian roulette match. Big Boss Man, Bubba, came in, and we had him against Kevin Sullivan, and we put a box on all four corners of the ring. 3 of them were empty. One of them had the spike, and they had to go for the fucking whoever got the spike first could use it. It was fun. Anyway, ways to incorporate spiking people. But Kevin calls me on the phone, and he says, this Kanemura works with Wing. He loves to get juice. If you put him on TV with me, he'll get juice from his arm for the spike. It'll get the spike over. And I was like, juice from the arm, but I knew Sheik had been doing it in Japan. That was a thing that some of them did. I said, all right. So I figured he's going to get a little color from his arm, right? Jesus Christ. Kevin gives him the spike as he's rushing into the corner, spiked his arm, and the kid takes the bump and blades, and he's coming up, and I'm watching the monitor. And at the same time, I'm seeing no blood whatsoever. I look at Brian Hildebrand's face. He's refereeing, and it looks like he's turned green. And what the fuck? And then you see a little trickle of blood. You see him do something else, and then you see some blood. He had cut his arm so deep that it was just meat. It wasn't even bleeding at first, but Brian looked at it, opened up like a goddamn watermelon. And then it was, what the fuck? And it still didn't bleed like the cut deserved. But so we put the X over it when we aired the show, the big red X. You can't see this on broadcast television. But then he had gone so deep and so far. And I would have never in a million years said do that if I'd have known that the guy was going to actually do that to himself. I figured, okay, nobody's gigging him. He's doing it himself, so he knows what he's doing. Then we were in Sevierville, Tennessee, at this high school gym. No, I think it was the middle school. And there was like 600 or 800 people there. It was jammed. It was a small gym. They take this guy and take him to the hospital in Sevierville, Tennessee. Here comes two Puerto Rican guys, a fucking 300-pound out of DeMott's from New Jersey or whatever, and this Japanese guy in wrestling tights and wrestling boots with his arm wrapped up, covered in blood at the emergency room at Monday night at about 10:30. Well, they're just right down the road from Pigeon Forge there in Sevierville. So they're not used to late night business. And they said when the guys came back and I saw them again, they said, you should have seen the looks on those people's faces. We walked in that hospital. But
none of that happens without FMW.
Well, exactly. And I at that time, I had no idea then I started seeing what they were doing. I was like, oh shit, no wonder. But I, had assumed that we were still in the wrestling business at that point in time. But anyway, so it was interesting. I mean, there's an audience for this kind of deathmatch garbage shit, and I don't know why. And thankfully, it's not big. And that's what I thought when I first heard about this stuff in the 90s. At least it's in Japan, and you'd never be able to do that over here. And then they brought it over here. And you're right, ECW is very culpable because so many people that watched that and grew up watching that stuff, they knew they couldn't be Guerrero and Malenko, but anybody could be the drunk fucking Sandman or the fucking guy, bashing somebody else with broken light tubes, the Rotten Brothers or whatever. So that's what the majority of people who got into wrestling because of ECW, that's what they wanted to emulate. And then here we go. But this week will certainly be more uplifting because we go from exploding rings to exploding police stations. Bruiser Bedlam, Johnny K9 is this week. And I'm going to be on it, full disclosure, because obviously I kind of suggested this episode to him because I've always wanted to know more about Bruiser's motivations for his double life. And they talked to a lot of people. They talked to his wife. They talked to people that knew him there as well as, people in the wrestling business. So you get these two different pictures of these two different people that he was when he'd go to wrestling. He was a completely different person than when he was administrating the Satan's Choice motorcycle club. But we'll find out this week. He was very friendly to you as a young boy, wasn't he?
Very nice guy. I have a photo of me in Morristown, New Jersey, Morristown, Tennessee. The night of Rob Moore's lawsuit, King of the Mountain tournament. Yeah. And it's me in a shirtless Bruiser Bedlam. He was very nice, although in the photo, the expression he took on was one of shock that he's being photographed. And I am just smiling as bright as possible next to this murderer in this photo. It's pretty funny, actually.
I don't think he was actually allegedly. We got to throw that in, a murderer at that point. It would all.
Oh, you didn't see the main event that night. It murdered Morristown.
Well, I was about to say it killed a few towns, but no, Bruiser. He was a great talent to have work for you because he was so dedicated. He wasn't the smoothest worker in the world, but he was there on time and he was ready to go and he was going to do whatever and he loved it. So we'll see that. But that's this week. It's a double header on Vice because at 9:00 Eastern on Thursday, October 7th, 9:00 is Johnny K9 and Bruiser Bedlam, both of them. They were two different people on Dark Side of the Ring on Vice. And then at 10:00 on Vice, MLW is getting I don't know if it's it's a special. That's what we've heard so far. I'm sure if it did 1 million viewers, they'd probably sign them up. But it's a special. But as we said, it could be open to more. We don't know. But it's going to be the main event for the MLW title that they are shooting this weekend in Philadelphia. Jacob Fatu versus Alexander Hammerstone. And as you'll recall of the guys in MLW when I was there doing commentary, a little over 2 years ago now, MJF was an MLW. God damn these initials. I told you I was slappy. MJF was there, loved him and the Dynasty. He was with Holiday and Hammerstone. Jacob Fatu, I've said, my God, anybody that started a wrestling company and didn't figure out some way to buy him out of his contract is insane. And they were the standout group. There's a couple other guys. Pillman Jr. was there then. But anyway.
Selena De La Renta was one of the other
Selena De La Renta. Well, I'm thinking wrestlers, but Selena is a talent on my mind. So anyway, so we're going to watch that this coming Thursday night and report, I guess, next week on the experience. It'll be right afterwards. We'll tape that, about the Fatu and Hammerstone match. When I was there, both those guys were heels. But they've got completely different personalities, completely different gimmicks, completely different styles, but I think they probably are going to be able to put something together. So we're going to see what happens. So MLW Fightland at 10 o'clock after Dark Side of the Ring. I sound like the TV Guide guy now. Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you want me to see or whatever?
That was Movie Phone, not TV Guide.
Movie Phone. TV Guide, Movie Phone, whatever.
Not whatever. Two different things. Completely different things.
Well, you still find out things to watch.
But Movie Phone is a phone number that you call, and it is a directory of movie theaters and what they're showing, and it tells you, customized to what you're requesting, what movie is nearby.
Not when Kramer does it.
Well, that was his intent. That was what he tried to do. The execution and the intent are two different things.
Why don't you just tell me the name? Anyway. All righty. So we're going to be able to watch something else next week besides WWE and AEW in the fight they're both trying to lose, apparently. However, I did watch, I said I wasn't going to, but I had to find out what was going on with our boy Rex Steiner. I did skip through some NXT this past week. And it was a rib because the Steiner was on in a 30-second pre-tape. Otherwise than that, you didn't see him. He was on it. And he was the best part of the show. He said, I'm not here to make friends. If you want a friend, buy a dog. I want the title.
And he said shit.
And he said shit. Because everybody can say shit now. Remember when that shit used to be reserved for never?
Did it come up? Did someone say, Vince, AW can say shit. I want to say shit too. Oh, okay.
Who
are you?
You laugh, but I guarantee you that nobody started saying shit on that show without asking Vince if they could say shit.
Of course.
Meanwhile, they just on the other channel, they just shitty McShit shit without referring to Tony at all. But on NXT, I just got to tell you some of the things, Brian, that they did.
Obviously, I didn't watch.
Obviously, you didn't, and you shouldn't have.
Thank you.
Again, remember when everybody liked this show? Remember when it was the easiest one for us to watch? Okay, the Death Row group, the rappers, Kayfabe, the girl, and the other three, including our friend AJ from the Treasure Show. They rapped and danced and came to the ring and did all their poses. All four of them had microphones. And they did a promo tonight. It's all about the ladies. And they were 6 minutes into this show before here comes the Lucha Suits and Carmen Electra out. And
Carmen Electra?
Yeah. That's our Electra Lopez. Carmen Electra, Jennifer Lopez, whatever the Lucha Suits girl's name is. She was in the opening match. No disqualification. We haven't said it in a while. Lazy booking.
No disqualification.
No disqualification. Kayfabe versus Carmen Electra.
Didn't they just start feuding last review you did?
Yeah, because we haven't seen Carmen Electra before 2 weeks ago.
She got slapped in the face and now they're having a no DQ match?
Yeah, well, the guys got in a big six-way on the floor and the referees came and kicked them out. And when they came back from the break, the girls were on the floor fighting over a fucking table. Like doing a tug of war over who gets to set the table up. At one point, there were 3 chairs and 2 kendo sticks in the ring. And Carmen beat Kayfabe flat in the middle with her finish. And then 20 minutes into the show to get to that point. Now.
You heard the Hit Row News, right?
What is the Hit Row news?
They have been drafted to Smackdown.
Oh, good Lord. Well, at least we're not watching SmackDown too much anymore. I swear to you what they did next, it was one of those recurring segments through the show. I'm going to tell you about it. Indy and Dexter's romantic day at the beach. They're out on the beach and they're drawing hearts in the sand and they're walking along holding hand. Is the audience of NXT now suddenly supposed to be 14-year-old girls? Because no male over the age of 10 gives a fuck about watching a guy and his girlfriend walking around on a romantic day on the beach, but Johnny Sameface and his wife, Mrs. Sameface, were watching from the balcony of the hotel with binoculars to make sure that Indy and Dexter didn't fuck on the beach. And when it looked like they were getting a little too close, suddenly they look over and see a shark in the water and they run away. And the camera lingers on the shark and it's Johnny Sameface with a shark fin on his head and scuba gear. I am not making this up.
Wait, hold on one second. You know, I was listening.
He impersonated a shark to prevent whatever kind of intercourse that they were going to have on the beach from taking place. And they bought it and they ran off.
Remember when we first started watching Gargano and you would talk about the fact he has no personality, no charisma, no different facial expressions? That's how he got the name, Johnny Sameface.
Yeah.
Are they trying to prove you wrong by showing you just what an amazing amount of charisma he has? Because since that time, he's gotten to the point where you tell me he's dressed like a shark on a fucking beach.
But see, it's not charisma. It's just a fucking boring guy doing stupid shit. So then they got in the ring, or they went back to the ring, and Joe Gacy is in the ring in his real estate fucking salesman's outfit that he wanders around in. Just a dress shirt and dress pants and shoes.
Well, hold on. Let me just stop you because I know you've said a whole bunch of names the last few weeks. Which one is Joe Gacy?
Exactly. He's a pudgy, kind of, bearded white guy that looks like he rents cars at Enterprise, and he's been on the show for the past 2 or 3 weeks reciting scripted lines about safe spaces and everything being inclusive because somehow some Republican that's responsible for some of this content feels that that will make him a heel, but it's boring. It's in a monotone delivery. The people are whatting him out the ass. Nobody cares. And he makes no point. It's like watching some moron on cable access that's running for city council. And he did an interview and he left. And Joe Gacy, I mean, he looks a little bit like John Gacy. The fucking cannibalistic murderer from Des Plaines, Illinois. If the original Gacy had a little bit more hair and was a little younger. But otherwise, is he Jane Wayne Gacy's husband? Old J.C. Gacy or whoever I don't know. Anyway, they've got a new Samoan, Zion Quinn. Now, I didn't know Anthony Quinn was Samoan. I'm not sure that the Quinn dynasty ever came from the South Pacific Islands, but his first name, Zion, is spelled Xyon. And he wrestled Oney Lorcan. So you had Zion Quinn versus Oney Lorcan. I got to be honest with you. I would have loved Zion Quinn in OVW. He's a good-looking athlete. He's got something to him. He's got some explosiveness and some athletic ability. He obviously doesn't need to be on national television right now, but they're doing it anyway. And he beat Oney Lorcan flat in the middle with a flying forearm that would have made Manny Fernandez proud. But I hope British Airways has direct flights because it doesn't look good for Oney.
Is he British? I thought he was from Boston or something.
I thought Oney Lorcan was with the British fellows here a while back.
Maybe I'm wrong. I know he was tagging with them, but for some reason I thought he wasn't British.
Well, is Oney a Boston name or a British name?
I've never heard of a single other human being in my life named Oney. Is it a human name? I don't know.
Well, speaking of human names, here's another one that's got one. Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller does have a trace of an accent from across the pond. Not thick, but he's doing a sit-down interview. Apparently, he's a risk taker. If somebody says to him, dive out of that airplane, he's going to dive out of that airplane. They show footage of... They showed B-roll stock footage of people doing risky things. It wasn't him jumping out of the airplane. It wasn't him fucking whatever. They were just showing stock footage of people doing these things. And he's doing a sit-down interview dressed like he was auditioning for the dating game and talk. So then, remember MSK?
Yeah.
The fucking goofy tag team with the goofy haircuts and the prison tattoos. They do an in-ring promo, and they have a new girl interviewer, Samantha Irwin, and she got a lower third. She got a graphic with her name, so maybe somebody's listening. But even the interviewers are new here. I've never heard of Samantha Irwin. I did pay plenty of attention to this interview, not because I was listening to MSK read their scripted lines, but because Samantha Irwin was not wearing a brassiere in the outfit that she had on. There was no over-the-shoulder boulder holder to be seen, and I like that. However, the grisly-looking veterans interrupted, asking for a title opportunity, so Vince's verbiage is everywhere. Then Carmella Hayes and his friend Trick came out, and they wanted the same thing, a title opportunity. And by the way, folks, Trick is still bout it. And then after the bad actors spoke in catchphrases for a little while, Briggs and Jensen came out. And Jensen is Barry Buchanan's son. He's 20 years old. So he's got all kinds of potential because he could already talk and he could work a little bit, and he's only 20. And they're Southern boys, so they sounded less rehearsed than everybody else. But basically, they just jumped Carmella and fucking Trick and had a big fight, and then the fight stopped. And we saw it all stop, and then it stopped, and then they left. And, oh boy. The women's tag team title was on the line between Toxic Attraction. The team now, the single is Mandy Rose now because she's got dark hair, so she's nobody to mess with now that she's changed her hair color. But this was the team of Jane Wayne Gacy and Gigi Allen, and they wrestled Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. And old Jane Wayne Gacy was my favorite one because she had attitude, but now they've dyed her hair jet black, and it's killed her look. But that was 15 minutes of national television time. Then we got to hear from Rex Steiner for 30 seconds. And then Tommaso Ciampa, who is the NXT champion that Rex Steiner wants the title of, responded that he would drown in an ocean of inexperience, which I kind of thought was cute. Anyway, Andre Chase, who is now doing the Dean Douglas gimmick but dressing like one of the Mean Street Posse, he's wrestling in a sweater and slacks, his own university sweater. He wrestled Boa with the 1,000-year-old woman Mei Ying at ringside. Remember her? She was the one that was torturing Boa and
Xia Li.
The little Boette. I can't remember what Xia Li. There you go. So this match ended when old 1,000-year-old Mei Ying, who doesn't look a day over 960, folks. She didn't blow mist at him. She blew dust in Andre Chase's face, and Boa beat him. Now, of course, Andre Chase is a heel, but the guy wrestling the heel, his manager, cheated so that he could win. So Andre Chase is one of the new ones, and he's already getting beat. So there you go. But I know you're wondering, Brian, did Indy and Dexter smarten up and go back to their hotel room so they could fuck around? That's what you're thinking, wasn't it?
I forgot all about them, to be honest.
Well, don't forget about Indy and Dexter, because the same faces still want to do the cock blocking, right? So Johnny Sameface has basically, he's outside their hotel room. He tells one of the maids that it's his room. She lets him in, like that'll ever work. He goes into the room. He finds in one of Dexter's clothes pockets a string of about 100 condoms. And then they come in while he's in there. So he hides in a closet. While they sit down on the bed, they don't see Johnny Sameface hiding in the closet or the multiple camera people that were shooting multiple angles of this right out in front of them. There's a camera in the closet. There's a camera next to their bed shooting them. They have no idea that anything is amiss. So they start to have a pillow fight. But then Indy starts going harder, harder. And fucking Johnny Sameface is just, he's embarrassed. Then Roderick Strong beat Grayson Waller. That was for the Cruiserweight title.
Did he win the title?
Well, no, I think he's already the title, the champion. Yeah, well, Roddy won. So Grayson Waller's already doing jobs. So he's a risk taker, but he's not much of a fucking match winner.
Mazel tov.
Trey Baxter and Cora Jade got to do a promo in the back, and they're a couple. And just so we know, they kissed each other very chastely and politely with no tongue. And then we saw the debut of the brand new talk show that apparently is going to be on NXT. Brian, you were really just anxiously awaiting this debut, right? Remember Lashing Out with Lash Legend?
Oh, that's right. I was just thinking, who was it that had the talk show? I forgot. And someone screaming in the hallway. They must have heard the news. It's Lash Legend.
Yes. Well, this was pre-taped, not in the ring. It was pre-taped in front of a studio audience with Lash Legend, whoever the fuck that she may be, sitting in a chair, drinking, I believe, from a martini glass or something. The set looked like a cheap comedy club. You didn't really see the crowd, the studio audience. You saw back of a couple of heads, and you heard them, but you didn't see who they are because probably they were all fucking tech assistants from the Stamford studio. Anyway, the premise of this show is that Lash Legend, whoever she may be, sits in her chair and recites scripted lines, kind of like, who is that? There's an afternoon talk show host that people swear that she is not a what's the polite word for this? A transsexual person, but that she was really born a woman, but she looks like she's about 6'3" and she could kick your ass.
Oh, you talking about Wendy Williams?
Wendy Williams.
The height is what made me think of it. Not the other allegations that you said that other people are making about her.
Well, I'm just saying, some people say that she actually was born a woman and is not, and other people say, well, that's ridiculous. Ooh. But and some people say that she's entertaining, which is the most ridiculous thing of all. Well, Lash Legend is a bad version of Wendy Williams, and she sits and recites lines in that kind of flavor and then points to pictures next to her that they superimpose on the screen of people that she's talking about. This was abysmal. This ranks right up there with My Mother the Car and Jackie Gleason and You're in the Picture as the greatest bombs in television history. Remember, Jackie Gleason hosted that program 1 week back in the early 1960s. And the second week of the show was Jackie Gleason coming out on stage for 30 minutes and apologizing for the previous week's television program that they would never do again.
Remember, Jerry Lewis had a talk show too.
And this was worse than that. Hey, lady. So then Pete Dunne and Ridge Holland attacked Kyle O'Reilly in the aisleway, and they went to a break. And when they came back from the break, the match was already going. So he just got jumped and the shit kicked out of him. But when they come back, he's all right. And O'Reilly won. The heels got heat. Von Wagner came in and made the save. He's Wayne Bloom's son, right? He looks like John Studd's nephew. Tony D'Angelo was on the docks this week. This segment was 80s Tuesday Night Titans. It's just so, I mean, I'm expecting to see the Brother Love show next week. This is 80s WWF in the worst way. The one thing that gave me any kind of fuzzy feeling, the main event was for the women's title, Raquel Gonzalez against Frankie Monet. Finally, we get to see Frankie Monet wrestle. And I'm kind of a fan of Raquel Gonzalez. She's green. Love Frankie Monet. They were serious. They've both got some size and strength to them. Monet is gorgeous. She's got great facial. She can work. They've positioned Gonzalez as kind of a kick-ass babyface, and she's strong. I mean, so both these girls do different stuff from the other girls. You don't get these interchangeable 100-pound blondes like Alexa Bliss and the other interchangeable blondes. I can't remember their names. I just fast-forwarded through some of them on SmackDown. They, with the pissy forearms and the fucking herky-jerky movements. They didn't do any gymnastics in this match, which was refreshing. Gonzalez needs to work on her comeback and not rushing it, because she did. But Gonzalez won with a power bomb, kind of a modified power bomb, and then had a wardrobe malfunction. Her shoulder strap of her outfit came loose, and she grabbed the belt and put the belt over her shoulder when she's standing there after the match. But then the heels all come out. Toxic Attraction. I should specify which heels. Toxic Attraction comes out, but they, instead of beating up Raquel Gonzalez first, they beat up Frankie Monet and Jesse Kamehameha, her assistant stooge, and Robert Stone. They're the heels. They were in the aisleway. So Frankie Monet did the job and then got beat up by Toxic Attraction. And then they got in the ring and attacked Raquel Gonzalez. And she had to get the shit kicked out of her while trying to keep her boob from falling out of her top at the same time, because they had no time to fix that. And Frankie and her gang, instead of Spanky and our gang, it's Frankie and her gang. I've just named their group. They just disappeared. So I like the match, but I don't know who the heels are, who the baby faces are, and why they did what they did. But that was in it. Doesn't that NXT program sound exciting, Brian?
It sounds like it shouldn't be on TV.
I'm telling you, in 3 weeks, it has gone from remember how you say, well, at least it's a professionally produced program, and everybody's highly trained, and they look like they're in good shape, and even if it's boring in some cases because people aren't over, they're not going to do anything insulting. They've gone completely into I would not have been particularly happy about airing this as an Ohio Valley Wrestling program on, as I've mentioned, one major station and one satellite station in the state of Kentucky, instead of much less national television. You know what? It's enough, Brian. It is enough to make you sick to your stomach to watch what they have done to this show. And the people in the United States and around the world, you got bad enough stomachs as it is. Your gut health is fucking rotten. I know you people have heard this before, but I'm going to tell you again, including me, all of us, we've got horrible guts. You know that feeling in your gut? It's disease, pestilence, and potential death, because we're killing ourselves, apparently, from what I've heard, with our fundamentally broken food system, Brian. And only the people at Uprising Food are trying to do anything about it, because the food system is making us sick, and they're trying to do something about that. They want to be the ones to make, if anybody's going to make us sick, Uprising Foods wants to be the one to do it. No, I'm sorry. They want to make us well. I got that backwards. Yeah, that's correct, right? They want to make us well.
Very well, as well as you can be.
As well as you can be with healthy food, because Uprising's mission is to liberate all of us. Viva la resistance! Liberate all of us from a fundamentally broken food system that is stealing our health. The real devil here in this equation is the snowball effect of silent, inflammation. When you're eating all this crap and processed stuff that they feed us that tastes so good, you're killing yourself. But Uprising has cracked the code on healthy bread. You cannot find something this healthy that tastes this good, that's this fresh, anywhere in the world. You can't find it, folks, I promise you. But in this situation, there's only 2 net carbs per serving, 6 grams of protein, and 9 grams of fiber. They cover paleo, clean keto, simple, low carb, high fiber, dairy-free, grain-free lifestyles, whatever. You can eat this shit. If you can get it down your gullet, folks, it'll fit any diet. Uprising products are baked with real superfood ingredients like almonds, MCT oil, apple cider vinegar, egg whites, psyllium husks, not to be confused with psilocybin, which potentially may be an additive you might want to put on this stuff in the privacy of your own home. Also, olive oil. That's in there too. But I'm telling you, it's not a loaf of bread, Brian. It's a sourdough-esque cube of bread that I believe you engage in family time with by letting the children cut off some chips or some pieces or slices of this. And sometimes they do arts and crafts projects with it. Sometimes they're patching holes in the roof.
I will say it is delicious because we had one that was fresh, and then we had a second one that we put in the freezer. And we said, let's try this out after a few weeks. And we took it out of the freezer 3 days ago, and it was delicious. And we've become a big fan of it. We're actually ordering more. The kids like it. I'm not allowed to cut my own slices anymore because I like to do triangle-ish slices. So I get a thin end and a thick end. And I was told not to cut it anymore or no one will talk to me.
Wait a minute. You don't cut your bread or even sourdough-esque bread product slanted, do you? It's got to be consistent, the same thickness all the way through.
It can be if you cut a second slice with the same dimensions going the other way. I'm not saying it's a big triangle. It's a long, thin triangle that at one end of it has a fat ass, and it goes up and it gets very thin at the top.
Well, sounds like the devil's triangle to me. Folks, it all comes down to taste, though. Taste is the thing. And healthy foods are littered with broken promises. I've probably made a few in this program already. Uprising has nailed the taste factor to the wall on both their sourdough-esque cubes and the crunch factor on their newly launched Freedom Chips, which taste vaguely like those old-school rye chips that you also enjoy from your... Remember when you were a kid and they gave you those rye chips in school? When you had misbehaved and you'd pissed in the coat closet and they said, here, eat this.
What?
That'll teach you.
No.
They're super filling. But anyway, folks, Uprising is offering our listeners $10 off the starter bundle. What in the world, you say, is the starter bundle? Well, that includes 2
Every time.
See, there's the syllables in here. Superfood cubes, not superfood cubes, but superfood cubes. There's 2 of those superfood. God damn it. There's 2 of them goddamn bricks in there and 4 packs of Freedom Chips. That'll get the whole family. You can wipe them all out at one try. Go to uprisingfood.com/JCE and the discount, $10 that is, will be automatically applied at checkout. That's uprisingfood.com, UPRISING food.com/JCE to get $10 off your purchase of the starter bundle. And if you think the starter bundle is great, wait till you get a hold of the finish bundle. That'll fucking trip your trigger.
Delicious food. We're, like I said, in the process of ordering more right now.
Delicious food. That's what I like. And loud noises. Anyway, Smackdown. Good Lord. Thankfully, I didn't watch most of it.
Good.
Because you didn't either, and I knew you weren't. But I'm going to my notes now because we did see, I think, probably the greatest sight of our wrestling week, Paul Heyman. I mean, Now, is there any doubt that he deserves to be placed along on a mountaintop or on the wall, the pantheon of the immortals, with Olivier, Redgrave, De Niro, and now Heyman? He's fucking great. Do you think, did he onion his eyes? He had to have. He was crying. He was crying tears. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing Paulie cry, but in a working way.
I'm sure he didn't have to work too hard to get fake tears.
Well, normally they're called crocodile tears, but Paulie doesn't really have bags under his eyes. He's got suitcases. So anyway, the very first part of the show, well, they're doing the draft business, and nobody cares. Does anybody care about the draft? Because
people do.
They're all in the same company.
Well, it's stupid.
It's a bullshit, stupid thing anyway. People care about it.
People care about it. I have the, I don't know if you watched throughout the show, but I do have a list here of the different draft picks from SmackDown.
Well, I didn't watch throughout the show because I didn't care, but you can go ahead and tell me where everybody's going so I'll know what to look out for in the future.
Here are the draft picks. SmackDown, I'll give you their first 8 picks. In order, number 1 draft pick, Roman Reigns. Number 2 draft pick, the Raw Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair. Number 3...
So wait a minute. So Charlotte now will join Roman Reigns on SmackDown. There's 2 reasons to watch.
Number 3, Drew McIntyre. Number 4, the New Day's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods.
So where's Big E now?
Well, hold on. Number 5, Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss.
Oh, my God. We'll get to that in a second.
Number 6, Hit Row, consisting of the NXT North American Champion Isaiah Swerve Scott, Top Dollar, Ashante the Adonis, and B-Fab. Which one is the guy from the collectible show?
AJ.
Is he Top Dollar?
Well, I don't know. His name was AJ on the fucking WWE co-produced Treasures program, so now they're presenting him with a different name on another one of their programs, so who gives a shit?
Yeah, why would you call him Top Dollar when he was trying to give all these historians low deals, offers on everything?
I ought to call him Lowballer.
Number 7, Naomi. And finally, number 8, coming to SmackDown, Jeff Hardy. Here are the first 8 draft picks from Raw. The number 1 draft pick, the WWE Champion Big E, going to Raw officially.
So his other 2 partners are on SmackDown now.
That's right. That is correct.
So will there be pancakes on both programs, or can we get away from the pancakes and the unicorns and the trombones and the lollipops?
I'm starting to think pancakes may be the only food Vince remembers the name of, and that's why they keep having it on these shows. But number 2 coming to Raw, which I guess means there will be no revenge for the many ass kickings, Bianca Belair going to Raw. Number 3, the Raw.
Wait a minute. So she's just finished with what's her face?
Sasha.
She's just been mad at Sasha
and Becky. She was mad at everyone.
Okay, so they've all kicked her ass, and then she moves over where she can't get it back.
Number 3, staying on Raw, the tag team champions of RK Bro, Randy Orton, and Riddle.
I was hoping they would draft Riddle to the French Foreign Legion.
Moving to Raw, the number 4 draft pick, Edge. Number 5, the women's tag team champions, Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash, will be remaining on Raw. They're on Raw, right?
I haven't seen Rhea lately, so she must be, but oh God.
The number 6 draft pick, Keith Bearcat Lee. Number 7, the tag team of Rey and Dominic Mysterio.
You know, may I back up just a second to say, I bet you Keith Lee strikes me as a person that ain't gonna like having a nickname foisted off on him. And I bet you he liked Limitless before, and I bet you he's grumpy right now. He strikes me as a person that would be grumpy after being made to wear a tennis skirt and change his whole gimmick and do jobs that now he's a Bearcat.
On Raw, and of course the number 7 draft pick, like I said before, Rey and Dominic Mysterio will be going to Raw. And finally, the number 8 draft pick, Austin Theory.
Going to Raw.
Going to Raw.
Maybe we'll watch clips of him later. Well, I'm assuming that they're going to bury him as quick as he gets there because he's a person that I'd really like to see more of, so they can't have that.
But at least they've gotten the tennis skirt out of their system, so we know they're not going to put a tennis skirt on him.
Well, no, but he might be old Karrion Kross's partner, and he can be the Darso ripoff. Anyway, on this program, Reigns and Heyman started out first after the draft business. And I love it. Roman Reigns, as a babyface, they booed him out of the building. As a heel, now half the people are chanting for him. And Heyman heeled all over the city of Baltimore and did a promo on, Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel. So this isn't, as we've mentioned, this ain't the Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. It's fucking Saudi Arabia. They get the match. And I did enjoy that Paulie called Roman Reigns the suplexorcist because he exorcised the demon. Now he's going to exorcise the beast. Not exercise as in let's get physical, but exercise as in let's have Father Karras run the shit out of Linda Blair.
Let's get physical. I like that.
Yeah. Let's get into physical. Let me hear your body talk. Olivia Newton-John was quite a healthy young lady back then. Anyway, so here comes Brock Lesnar's music, and the place comes unglued because when he shows up, it's a special occasion. Although in this case, he comes down the aisleway, he looked like a caricature of Klondike Bill on steroids, with the lumberjack shirt and the fucking jeans and whatever. But this was great. He comes in the ring. They've got a face-off with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Reigns is the one to attack. Brock comes back out from under it, a couple of German suplexes. Here comes the Usos. He dumps them too. Reigns backs off, acts like he wants to get in, but he's backing off again. So Brock F5s both the Usos that are, their role there would be perfect if they weren't the tag team champions, because their role is to have whoever's fucking with Roman Reigns kick the shit out of them, or them to try to kick the shit out of them. But as tag team champions, it devalues the belt. Nevertheless, Reigns, as Gordon Soley would have said, was a picture of consternation at all these goings on. It was a great angle. It makes you want to see those guys have a match. That's the idea. This was so simple. All you have to do is look like stars, be stars, and do some serious shit that stars would do. It's not that hard. What'd you think?
I thought it was all right. That's all I have to say.
You, Mr. I want to see Roman Reigns every week on SmackDown. That's all I care about. Now
It's weird watching a show when you don't want to see almost anything else on the show. Because I tried a few things, and then I just started hitting that 30-second forward button, and I just zipped right through.
Is there one of those?
Yeah, on my cable remote there is. It goes 30 seconds ahead.
Well, 30 seconds ain't nearly enough.
Well, you hit it like 6 or 7 times, and next thing you know, you're in a commercial break.
Goddamn fast forward until all the arrows pop up. Anyway, in this program also, Happy Corbin beat Kevin Steen flat in the middle of the ring 1, 2, 3 with his new buddy, what's his name?
Madcap Moss.
Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. So they've also, by the way, obviously written off Mr. Steen in anticipation of his going to join the Lollipop Guild when his contract is up, because he just got beat flat in the middle. Were you as insulted as I was by the Edge and Seth Rollins segment?
I don't know if insulted is the right word, but this is around the point where I gave up on the show, and I said, you have Seth Rollins, who I just saw on the Broken Skull thing, and I want to give him a chance, and then it's this, and I don't know who this appeals to. I don't know why they think this is a good thing to do, but whatever. I'm not their audience. What do I know?
All right, well, Edge, for the folks of you who are lucky enough not to see this, Edge is in the ring at SmackDown doing a live in-ring promo when suddenly Seth Rollins interrupts on the big screen, and the camera widens out, and he reveals he's at Edge's house in outside Asheville, North Carolina, with a live remote television camera. It's not even like one of these FaceTime phone camera things. They've actually got a professional television camera and a cameraman, and they are beaming this via satellite to the live location at Smackdown is. But, of course, nobody knew he was going to do this. And Edge has to react in shock and horror and run out of the ring and run to the back as quickly as he can because Seth Stalin just goes in the open front door in the middle of the night, it's dark outside, at Edge's house. This was goofy when Steve Austin came to Brian Pillman's house 25 years ago in Cincinnati, but at least they were over, and at least it was supposed to be on television, and at least they didn't go this far with the boring stupid. It was fairly much people screaming and yelling and fucking things breaking and gunshots. Seth Rollins just opens the unlocked door, goes in looking for Beth. Beth, she's not there. Raids the refrigerator, eats an apple and drinks some orange juice, sat in his chair, knocked the kid's art, put his feet up on the table. This went forever. And there was no damage even done to the location. I've had people in my house that made a bigger mess that were invited. And then you come out of that and go back to Edge in the back on the phone, supposedly with Beth. Go to your brother's house. Go to Seth's in the house. Go to your brother's. So that they just fucking buried Edge as a complete moron and more obviously and more worse, as a matter of fact, complicit in this whole thing. They're yanking our crank. This ain't happening. It's bullshit. They didn't even make a legitimate run past making it believable. And there's two of their top guys, and they just make them idiots. I guarantee you that this is a Vince McMahon / Bruce Pritchard type of thing that they loved the Austin and Pillman thing. I had to sit there and listen to them rave about it.
Hey, give that thing credit, though. People talked about that. The next day, it's all wrestling fans could talk about was that angle, the gun. Whether you liked it or not, people talked about it. Is anyone talking about Seth Rollins going to Edge's house?
No, because Pillman and Austin kind of actually made people believe somewhat that they were screwy or that something at least had gone wrong. This was just boring and made Edge look like an idiot because he bought it. Brock Lesnar thanked Paul Heyman and by the way, he comes in on Jeff Hardy's interview, and Jeff just goes, oop, and backs off. So way to fucking make your baby faces look like real kick-ass guys. He thanked Paul Heyman for him being a free agent. Then they go to the locker room with Reigns and Heyman and the Usos. And this is great stuff if you ignore that they're having a private talk on television, which I guess we've come to the point where we just do, because at least we get to hear them do a decent fucking rendition of a promo. But Reigns asked Heyman, are you good friends with Brock Lesnar? He thanked my good friend Paul Heyman for him being a free agent. Are you good friends with Brock Lesnar? Are we good friends, Paul? And Paul was teary-eyed. He was shitting himself. He was trembling. And Reigns doesn't want the Usos drafted away from him. And he screamed at Paul, go to Raw and make sure that the Usos are stay on SmackDown or whatever, right? So Heyman leaves, and then Reigns tells the Usos, go with him to Raw and either go make sure he does what he's supposed to do or leave him for dead. So now they're teasing Heyman's jig may be up. Again, great stuff if you they're on fucking television. And of all people, Paul Lee's not going to watch himself back to see what he looked like on TV.
That was the big thing. They did that, I think, last week, too, where all of a sudden they're doing a great promo together right in front of the camera and not acknowledging it. And it's so stupid. It defeats what the purpose is here.
But anyway, that was my thoughts of SmackDown. That didn't take long, did it? Jesus Christ, they are handing this fight to the opposition.
And they think they're putting up a fight.
and they think they're putting up a fight. I don't know. Have they got a screw loose? Do they need a new carburetor, a new engine, something to put in their screwy heads to fix themselves?
A new CEO.
Because they think these things? A new CEO, perhaps?
Yeah, a new CEO, I think, would really help.
Well, folks, if you need spare parts to put inside you to make you smarter, well, you ain't gonna be helped here, because we're talking about car parts now. We welcome a new sponsor to the program, the folks at rockauto.com. All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
I was going to ask if you knew
their
it.
Commercial.
Yeah, good. I was going to ask if you knew the jingle.
Oh, yes, I do, because they have an amazing selection and reliably low prices. And folks, I'll tell you what, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models of all these cars, you don't know what the hell they are now. It's almost impossible for anybody to stock all the parts that you need in one of these traditional storefronts of these auto parts places. So why should you, the consumer, have to endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning by these people? Is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? What the fuck is an Odyssey? What does Odyssey Jones have to do with this? Anyway, you don't have to go in these stores and pick the brands that his warehouse happens to carry, because you have access, if you have a computer, to rockauto.com. If you repair and maintain your cars to save money so that you can use that money for other important things like mortgage, food, Cornette's collectibles, why would you spend 30%, 50%, 100% more for the exact same auto parts at a chain store or a dealership that you can get at rockauto.com? They've sometimes, Brian, I know you're a longtime car repairer, and you know this, that chain stores have different prices for professional mechanics and the do-it-yourselfers. If you're a pro, you're in the family. They figure you in, but they take advantage. They literally abuse the walk-ins. Well, rockauto.com's prices are the same for everybody, and they always offer the lowest price possible. So if you have any idea how to service your car yourself, I personally would not ride in a car that I had anything to do with maintaining. However, some people can do these things. So from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. If you need a new crankshaft for your truck or a new truck shaft for your crank, whatever, go to rockauto.com, rockauto.com. And on that site, when it says, how did you hear about us? Actually, it won't say that. It will read that. If you read it, then that's what it'll say, but it won't speak it. But they've got a box on there. It says, how did you hear about us? Type JCE in that box, and they'll know that we sent you, and therefore they should take care of you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. You know what they say about these car repairs, Brian? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And speaking of which, I haven't heard you squeak today. Oh, well, all right, I'm sorry.
There's
right. Squeaky chairs. Is the squeaky chair going to get the grease? I thought you got a new one.
I did get a new one. I just haven't constructed it yet. It's still in the box downstairs.
Wait a minute, what kind of fucking Fisher-Price Mickey Mouse stuff are you doing with the construct it? Just buy a chair already put together.
Well, I have to put it together. I have to put the base on the seat, and I have to put the arms on the seat, and I have to put the back on the seat.
Wait a minute, you put the arms on the seat?
Yeah.
Well, you just lay them there and then sit on top of them?
Well, no, you put them where the arms would normally go to rest.
You put them on the seat. You put them on the sides of the seat, attaching to the back.
Are your eyes on your face or on the front of your face? I mean, it's really semantics when we get down to it.
Well, if you had any cement, you wouldn't need the grease.
You may be right about that.
Nevertheless, you are so cheap.
No,
that you just buy a nice King Louis XIV chair and have it delivered to your home. You buy something in a box somewhere on the side of the road under an overpass. Now you've got to put it together.
I bought a chair from a reputable source. It has wheels on like a King Louis XIV chair because I need to move around my desk in the work area because there's so much happening here. And
wait a minute, you can't move around without wheels? What are you, a fucking obese 400-pound?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you have a chair without wheels, it's hard if you have a workstation on your left, a workstation behind you, a workstation on your right, and you need to move around. Wheels.
I'm not surrounded by my work. All my work is right in front of me. I can turn a little to the left. I can turn a little to the right. I can do the Harlem Shuffle. I don't need wheels.
You can do the Harlem Shuffle.
Sure.
All right. Well,
as long as you can't see me.
The point is, this chair will be out of service pretty soon. Still haven't decided what to do about it. I may put it on Cameo. Do you think people would be interested in getting cameos from Brian Last's chair?
Well, it depends on how many different and creative ways that it can squeak insults to people.
Well, that's the question. Do I do any of the talking from behind the chair as the chair? Does the chair talk and have a voice? Or is it just me introducing the chair and the chair squeaks and maybe I write a joke on it and leave it on the chair? What do you do?
I think that's it. You introduce the chair, then you walk off and you leave a written joke on the chair, and the chair can squeak a little bit when it delivers it.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to do any appearances in the Cameo, because then we have to bump up the Cameo rate a lot of money.
Oh, God.
The chair alone, you could probably make it a reasonable fee.
Well, yeah, because the chair has no union.
Are you allowed to put chairs on Cameo, or does it have to be a human being?
I don't know that that's been tested yet.
Well, we will find out, but...
You could be the canary in the coal mine here.
I've always wanted to be a trendsetter, but we'll see what happens. But this chair will be retiring very soon.
Well, thank you, because I'm already tiring of the chair. Speaking of getting tired of people, apparently from what we are hearing, now I don't know of the veracity of this report. I don't know the details. I was not there on scene to witness this, but apparently the story is going around that Tony Khan has taken creative control away from the erstwhile executive vice presidents of AEW, namely the Hardley Boys, Kenny Olivier, and my old ex-friend Cody Rhodes. We'll get to that in a minute. But apparently, this is the report, right? He's taken creative control away from... They still have input, but he's the final decision maker. What was it before? What was he doing? Was it, hey, Cody, you're in segment 5. Let me know what you're going to do. Was that it?
No, and I think part of the issue is that people assume a lot of things, and they always have. Tony has always been the booker. He has always been the final say. Maybe he gave some people some extra leeway, but at the end of the day, Tony's the one who signs off on every single thing. So for people who think that when I say things like EVPs come and go, that it's crazy, look at the big picture. There's one owner, and there's one booker, and he loves people knowing that he's the booker. People pitch ideas.
Loves it.
Executive vice presidents pitch ideas, but so does every single other person on that roster. So, as I said, executive vice presidents come and go. Well,
yeah. You could go ahead and crow a little bit. Do you have the crows there? We got to find the crows instead of corny crowing. Now it's last crowing.
I believe it's a rooster, actually, but yeah.
There's a rooster, a crow, whatever. The rooster crows. What does a crow do? Rooster?
Roots.
Or cock? But we're not talking about them now. That's a streaming service. We'll talk about them later. But you said EVPs come and go, and you know it's going to be interesting when they have outlived their semi-usefulness.
The interesting thing is going to be in a few years, and I don't know when it'll be. It'll happen when the real story of AEW comes out, and a lot of the things we've said on the show that people thought we were being flippant, they'll realize, oh, wow, there was a basis in truth in all of this. And I think when people find out about the realities of the EVPs and their duties, and I think when people find out about the relationship, I mean, the Cody relationship with everyone else, everyone knows what's up with that now, but there's going to be a great book one day. And when that book comes out, everything will be the same as it is today, and that Tony Khan will be the boss of making all the decisions.
Yes, because the one thing that we pretty much established is that as long as that company exists, whether it's 4 years, 40 years, whatever the case, Tony Khan is apparently going to insist on being the booker. And the final word on he's now, because if after that controversy with Castor Oil a few weeks ago, if he's approving the raps that the Acclaimed do on the way to the ring, then he's pretty much micromanaging to an extent that I don't know that Vince McMahon ever did. Now, I'm not saying that all that management is perceptive or good. I'm just saying he's going down to the granular detail at this point. And one would have to think that what did we determine his age was? Nearing 40, Tony Khan, the other day on the program. We figured out all these ages.
38.
Jeez. Okay, isn't that a lot on his, I mean, that's a lot of things to do. He's supposedly an executive with the football team. He's supposedly an executive with this and that. Now he's doing the wrestling thing from start to finish, from scratch, blah, blah, blah. Does he sleep?
No.
Well, sooner or later you're going to have to, one way or the other, even if it's in a hospital bed. When you take on too much responsibility. But again, I don't know, but one would have to think is the sudden trend toward actually putting stars out there to just do what stars do and not overcomplicating everything. Has that been a byproduct of taking away any of this creative control? Or is it just blind luck because those people came along to do their own segments, the CM Punks, the Bryan Danielsons, etc. And because we still see, and we're going to talk about this past week's Dynamite here in a second, one segment looks like it could be on Monday Night Raw when 10 million people were watching it, and the next segment looks like it's on cable access with the folks in Sellersburg, Indiana watching it, or it should be. So I'm not sure yet if Tony has taken the creative control away from his EVPs, then what has changed? Because the only matches, the flavor of them that I see changing are the matches involving the guys like Punk and Danielson and etc. that would know better than to do foolish shit to begin with. So where have we, what ground are we gaining here with this relieving the EVPs of their authority in some cases?
Well, the question becomes how much authority did they even really have in the first place? Because you could still see the influence of different EVPs on different things. The Young Bucks' influence on Young Bucks segments is apparent because a lot of it comes from that stupid YouTube show. So, I mean, you can't say they have no influence. Cody, we'll talk more about Cody in a bit. Omega, a lot of it, I think, has been the women's division, and according to what we've been hearing, it's, from their camp at least, it's going to be more with the video game division, which, hey, you know what? That's his passion.
Good.
Go for it. Have a good time.
The one way that I will never have to interact with Kenny Olivier is if he's in charge of video games, because I don't play them.
But the question is, beyond any outside duties from wrestling, like I know one of the Young Bucks, his wife runs merchandise, so beyond like little things like that, do the Young Bucks or Cody have any more sway with Tony Khan when they're pitching ideas to him than a Christian or a Punk or an MJF or an FTR or anyone else? I mean, that's the question. And we'll certainly be finding out in the weeks ahead.
Well, at least one of the EVPs has something to fall back on. Because now, apparently, the Rhodes family are reality TV stars. Yeah, that's the way I felt. I watched this show the first time so we could talk about it, Brian. Do you think that any of the Cult of Cornette members out there will be inflamed or incensed or have their feelings hurt or be let down or in any other way negatively impacted if I never watch another episode of this horrible fucking piece of shit show again?
I think they would be upset. Although the ratings were low, I think a lot of people watched it with morbid curiosity, and I will say, although it's somewhat similar to Crisley Knows Best or one of those other garbage shows, I found myself thoroughly entertained by the tone deafness of the Rhodes family. I thought it was extraordinary. I'm so happy this was all on film.
If you don't want to watch this show to make fun of the people involved, is there any other reason why a grown adult with cognitive functioning and all of their senses unimpaired would ever watch this television program?
I don't know what the target audience is, and you would think based on how much they've advertised it, you would have had a good amount of people stay around after AEW Dynamite to see it. and it doesn't appear that was the case. And then they replayed it after that, and that didn't even chart.
Well, and hopefully, the only good thing I can say about this program is maybe nobody will watch it, because that would be a positive. And and now everybody go, oh, now he hates Cody. Well, you're right. You're right. I do. After all this time, he was the one guy. And see, this is Brian. That's why I seldom say good things about people, because it always comes back to bite me in the ass. What did I say about Cody Rhodes from the start? He's a son of the American dream. He's got it in his genes. He's a good worker. He has the most sensible at the start. Now they've obviously added talent, but he was the only one that had sensible pro wrestling matches at the start. Yes, his finishes were somewhat overbooked. And yes, his entrance is a little bit much to stomach, but he was a Rhodes. He could cut promos. He was a fucking wrestler. He could work. That was my initial thought going into the AEW experience of Cody Rhodes. And 2 years later, we have seen a lot of things that we've talked about on the program, but I still had hope for Cody Rhodes. I can't in good conscience want to ever say anything good or have anything positive to say about anybody involved in this television program again. And the reason why is not because they were rotten in the show, they were just boring in the show. The reason is because this whole program exists to further make wrestling look like a bunch of phony bullshit. Because they knew that nobody wants to watch I don't know why anybody watches any reality television. I don't know why anyone would want to be in a reality, quote unquote, reality television program. You try to put fucking video cameras in my house for the afternoon, I will take a bat to your fucking head. Much less all the time. Why anybody would watch one, I have little to any idea, except I enjoyed the Honey Boo Boo thing when the fat mother with the buck teeth took her shoe off and had fucking actual flies buzzing around under her toenails. That was interesting. But I've only seen scant clips and bits of these type of programs that have aired on Twitter or whatever, or commercials. But they know that people don't give a shit about Cody and Brandy's personal life or any of these other fucking boring morons' personal lives, but they want to see behind the scenes of wrestling. So to be reality TV personalities, Cody and Brandy Rhodes have just demonstrated to everyone that their own company is a bunch of phony bullshit. That's the only reason this program's on the air. The people know that fans want to see behind the scenes of wrestling and see all the good guys and bad guys talking to each other. And of course they do. And see people going over their interviews and talking about their angles. And so Cody and Brandy have slipped in on this to try to get people to watch for that reason, but it'll be like that they really care about their fucking personal lives, which I don't, because it doesn't have anything to do with the wrestling business. And it's supposed to be a fucking wrestling show. Not this show, but the show they're on. Within seconds of this thing, Brandy is the first black female executive in wrestling. That may be true, but what's she in charge of? Self-promotion? The chief branding officer. So she approves T-shirts, for fuck's sake. The whole show was, what are you going to do today? Oh, I got a lot to do. I got to talk to people. You're a fucking national television taping. I talked to so many people after every TV taping I've ever done, I couldn't hardly fucking speak afterwards. It's not a big fucking deal. The chief brandy officer. Brandy was actually in the back. They're talking in their executive vice president fucking capacities. She's talking to one of the girl wrestlers, the girl who wears the blue pants. She actually said this to this girl. I have never heard this. I've been in wrestling locker rooms since the middle 1970s. I have never heard this sentence uttered to a wrestler from a member of the office. What do you need so you don't go out and have a panic attack? What? What the fuck? Where have we fucking got here? Where the only time I ever had a panic attack when I went out to do a match was in Tulsa or Houma, Louisiana, when I thought there's a good chance I'm going to get fucking knifed. Otherwise, I've never been panicked to go out and have a fucking wrestling match or do a promo. You're not defying death, except in Tulsa or Houma, Louisiana. You're going to come back, especially for a promo or a match if you do it right, in pretty much the same condition you left. Nobody's holding your family hostage, depending on the outcome of this. So why would you have a panic attack? And then we found out that Brandy and Jane Cargill, the bitter enemies, are good friends. Jane was invited to the baby shower. More on that later. And by the way, in every shot, Brandy is enormous. I can't believe she didn't have quadruplets. There was Tony Khan and Cody talking about the story, that's a quote, of Anthony Ogogo turning on his mentor. His mentor, Cody, that he'd known for all of 3 months and had 3 interactions with on television. And besides that, they're talking about the angle that they did. He's making himself a phony on television. They talk about, goddamn, well, wrestling is entertainment. Fuck you. You know what? Here's the thing. I'm sure that everybody wanted to know how Chris Angel got run over with that fucking steamroller and flattened out and then fucking puffed up back to life. But once they did know, they'd never want to see him do it again because now they know. So when all the magicians get together and do a reality show where they're standing around in the back talking about how they do their tricks, then let me know. Otherwise, fuck these people. There was a segment where Brandy talked about her acid reflux and her nausea, which was followed by talking about her vagina opening and how wide it would be to expunge the baby that she's about to have. Why is this on television? Is this the goddamn medical channel? Those gross me out too. There was a couple of segments where Cody and Brandy were talking about his incredibly personal promo. That's another quote that he was going to do that night, and how he didn't want to tell her because he wanted to get her reaction after it was the fucking promo, the interracial baby promo, where he saved race relations in America and declared war on England. That one that we made fun of at the time, that was the feature event of what he did in this program. And there was Rebel back there. She's a makeup artist. But there's Rebel, Britt Baker's assistant, doing the makeup on Cody. That makes no sense to the viewers. Cody, at one point before he went into this, it was also talking about Darby Allin. I wrote this down, say, Darby's going to lose the title and pass on the belt tonight. Same thing I did for him. Fuck you. I can't imagine that Dusty Rhodes would not have been ashamed of you saying that on television. Because they're so convinced that they're just big TV stars now and nobody believes wrestling anymore. Because of people like you, nobody believes wrestling. And we don't want to insult the people's intelligence. Don't put your fucking untalented wife on television if you don't want to insult people's intelligence. You mean she walked in off the street with her resume and got the job of chief branding officer for a company backed by a billionaire because of her extensive background in branding? So now Cody was rehearsing his promo from notes. He actually had it written down and was reading it on camera, but I don't know what my mind was blown about more, that he was rehearsing and reading his promo off notes on camera, or that he was rehearsing and reading his promo off notes.
I go back to every review of a Cody promo we've ever done where I pointed out it seemed like he was acting. It seemed like he was looking down, almost as if he was holding the notes when he wasn't. It's because he was. The whole Cody workshops his promo thing, that's true. Look at this. This is a fucking guy with no instincts whatsoever. He has to ask everyone what they think about it. And no one has the balls to say, Cody, this fucking sucks. Don't do this. Are you a moron? By the way, your opponent is black. Why would you bring any of this up, you moron? But no one says anything.
Also, if you had gone up to Dusty Rhodes on a Wednesday at promo day at Crockett's office or at any TV taping and said, Dusty, you got any notes on your promo? He would have looked at you like you had a steaming turd hanging out of your mouth. Dusty, have you got your promo memorized? What the fuck's the matter with you?
Jim, what you have to understand is Cody Rhodes doesn't use any of the boring old wrestling tropes that you and your generation use, like doing things on the fly. No. It's all about rehearsal and making sure everything is perfect by the time you get out there.
Making sure everything is emotionless as possible because it's written down and scripted. Anyway, and then Cody also in one of the clips said, well, it's pro wrestling. It's fiction. I wrote, now I hate this show, and now Cody too. Then they were talking about Brandi's doctor appointments, and I had to fast forward some of this stuff. She still, multiple times during the program, she said she still wants to get back in the ring. Wouldn't that be great if I went? She says, wouldn't it be great if I went back and won the women's title on the same program where they've just talked about people giving up the title and dropping it on purpose and passing it around, and it's all fucking phony. But she thinks it would be an inspirational story for her to come back after having a baby at the age of 38 and win the women's title. It would be a fucking horrible story because she shouldn't be the women's champion of anything. As bad as their women's roster is, there are some much better than Brandi, but also, what the fuck? How can it be an inspirational thing when you've just told everybody we just give this thing to people whenever we want to? They have no choice in the matter.
And by the way, I hope they do it. I would love to see the audience reaction to Brandi making a comeback and winning the world championship. Hopefully over Britt Baker. Do it, please, Tony.
So Cody Rhodes then made Brandi a cake for Mother's Day. Is this what other reality TV shows are like? Do they just hang around in the house and make cakes for each other and then walk in and taste them?
I really couldn't tell you.
She liked the cake.
Good.
I'm a big fan of cake. Why is this on TV, is what I wrote with 2 question marks. I fast-forwarded through their romantic baby talk where they were smooching and talking about the baby. Why would it... They talk about how that the women's demographics are lower in AEW than they are in the WWE. Is this how they're going to try to get women to watch? Because certainly not only no adult male over the age of 18, but no male human past 7 wants to see a romantic conversation about babies between 2 people in their kitchen. Do they?
No. And no one wants to see Dusty. No one wants to see Cody and Brandi discuss any of these things.
Well, Cody got her some pink monogram boxing gloves and then went to the gym and she was punching the dummy. But she couldn't hardly, it was sort of like, there was an independent guy in West Virginia years ago. He wrestled as Super Mario. He owned a pizza place. His name was Mario, I think. And he was about 5 feet tall and about 380 pounds. And his arms would barely reach past his stomach. So when he did his finish was the big splash. But he couldn't really jump. And when he would fall forward, he'd sort of kind of roll on the guy across his belly and stop himself with his hands, and then he'd roll back down. It put me in mind of Super Mario because she's trying to box, but her arms can barely go past her stomach. Then Cody was quoted as saying, not quoted as saying, he said it on camera, wrestling is choreographed, but the risk is real. And then they did a lot of talk about how all this fake stuff that we do really hurts. Well, that's good to know, because now we know that you're doing fake shit and really hurting yourself at the same time. So what kind of fucking moron are all of us? Then Brandi had to talk. She was the one that had to talk to Red Velvet and Jane Cargill because they slapped each other too hard when they did that angle or Jane slapped Velvet too hard, and now Velvet is afraid what's going to happen in their match. And not Tony Khan, the booker, not him. He's not the one to sit down with him. Hey, is there an issue? This ain't ballet. Everybody was laying it in, but we don't want any ill feelings. Nobody had any fucking ill intent, did they? If so, then spill it now. Otherwise, hit hard in safe places. Go on about your business. No, the chief branding officer had to talk to him, and she didn't want the girls who wrestle each other to hate each other. She's actually telling these opponents that had a match with Shaquille O'Neal involved in it on national television against each other. Well, the last thing we want is for you guys to not like each other if you're going to wrestle. Brian, if only we'd have known all these years we were watching wrestling that the opponents are supposed to be friends with each other because it makes a better match. That's what she said. Fucking douchebag gets involved in our fucking business and thinks she's got the goddamn wherewithal and the right to go on television and just tell everybody it's a bunch of phony bullshit. Then Cody was going over with Ricky Starks what he was going to say when he broke his neck. And then they had a shot of Britt Baker, Cody Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, MJF, and Miro sitting together at the monitor watching all this stuff. And Starks does his promo. And everybody at the monitor enjoys it when he says bad things about people. And the last 15 minutes, Brandy and her family and the baby shower. If I ever watch a baby shower on television again, Brian, please shoot me directly between the eyes. I watched a baby shower on television. You just had a baby. Did you ever want to watch somebody else's baby shower on television?
No, I usually try to find a way to get out of attending mine. 'Cause usually the big thing is the dad shows up at the end, and that's the big thing, and all the women go crazy, and I always tried to find a way out of it, but I always got pulled back in.
Well, Cody was there from the start also. Apparently, he was
really?
all over the thing.
What baby shower is that?
Well, he was there talking to a lot of people, and the last 15 minutes was baby shower with the family and Brandy talking about wanting to wrestle again. And people were like, oh, you do? Apparently, nobody wants that, even her immediate family. And at the end, there's a bonus. At the very end of the show, Brandy is now creating her own wine, because when you think of Brandy Rhodes, the first thing you think of is getting fucking drunk, apparently. So you don't have to watch these fucking shows, I guess. I don't know. Put it out of your mind.
Maybe that's the first thing Cody thinks of. He thinks of Brandy Rhodes.
But anyway, so Brandy's starting her own wine, and she brings in Jane and Velvet so that they will be friends and have better matches, because, as we mentioned, she said opponents shouldn't dislike each other. And they tried to work some kind of deal where they were still kind of edgy with each other. But then Jane, the heel, by the way, says, well, I just want to get the women's division over. That's what I want to do. No, you fucking idiot. You should want to get yourself over and bury every single other girl in the company. And you should reach over and slap Red Velvet out of her chair like Lawler slapped Kaufman. That might make me interested in the wrestling program. But I will never watch this show again. I'm ashamed of Cody Rhodes for being involved in it, and I hate everyone that had anything to do with this program. Does that cover it?
I think that covers it. I think part of the reason the show did as well as it did, and it did not do well in any sense of the word, was because of the backstage segments.
Yes.
And the AEW stars. No one wants to see Cody and Brandy. AEW had some fans stay around afterwards to see what AEW footage they would see. And by the way, did you notice, give them credit. We kill them all the time. Give them credit for intelligence here. Omega and the Bucks nowhere to be found.
Nowhere.
On this thing. And by the way, great decision, guys. You got none of this one on you.
Yeah, not even in a camera shot in the back. Not any peripheral view of them. No, they knew not to be involved in this, and they came away without the stench of grisly death upon them.
I think you saw a lot of the reasons why people have a problem with Cody. And again, a lot of it, and Brandy, and again, a lot of it is reality TV. So there is a fakeness to it, but it's a fakeness dealing with two of the most pretentious people in the history of the wrestling business, who are dullards. And they desperately want to be as interesting as they want you to think they are. And you saw here on this show, two people completely out of touch. And another thing, and again, I know a thing or two about being an executive and being in a corporate environment, dressing the role and actually being able to perform the role are two different things. Wanting to dress like the executive you imagine you are and actually being a talented executive able to get things done are two very different things. And if you notice, Cody has very little to do with AEW right now. And I'm going to make a prediction right now. Cody and Brandy are going to be the first two from that initial class of upper echelon executives and wrestlers to leave. And I have no doubt in my mind about that. It may happen, I think, sooner rather than later. I shouldn't say that. He still has some time on his contract, but mark my words, Cody and Brandy are going to be the first two people gone, and very few people, outside of maybe Dustin, very few people are going to miss them there. And they really haven't contributed as much as... Look, say what you want about the Bucks and Omega. They're fucking there. And they're on TV, and they're doing what people wanted them to do who were into them. What does Cody do? Cody's all about this and the TV show and wanting to be the face of AEW. No one else wanted that. He wanted that. And I think Tony indulged it for a good while. And now this show is out. And it didn't do any numbers. And I don't think Tony's really going to be indulging Cody and Brandy too much longer.
This is not going to be one of those programs like Seinfeld or whatever that grows the audience over time. You just need to find it. Anybody who found this already doesn't want to look for it anymore. So I have a feeling it's downhill or uphill. It's definitely downhill for this show. Travis may be going uphill, but Rhodes to the Rotten is going downhill. Again, yes, idiots. People these days, unfortunately, they all know that wrestling is a work. But much the same as I know, again, that the magician didn't really do the trick that I saw him do. I got no idea how he did it. What pocket did he pull that thing out of? Where did it come from? Once that you've been shown the diagrams and the instruction booklet to the wrestling business, it's ridiculous. The more that they show what actually goes on, the less appealing what actually goes on is to the people. Because they know everything.
Can you imagine Jade Cargill, a rookie in the business? Red Velvet, I don't know what she's done in independent wrestling, but relatively new to a national audience.
Just drop them in any territory in the country 30 years ago and watch them look around with horrified looks on their faces like, what's going on here?
But they're pretty new. Can you imagine the idea that Brandy Rhodes is the one sitting down with them to talk to them about how to behave and what to do? Do they even realize that she has no wrestling background whatsoever other than she married Dusty's son? That's it. She was a ring announcer.
No, that's what I'm saying. To these people that get in the business now, they don't think they're wrestlers. They think they're actors and entertainers, and they automatically think that anybody... And I got news for you, folks. This isn't limited to modern wrestling. There have been people in positions in the wrestling business that they were totally unsuited for 100 years. And generally it's because of who they're related to or whether they're an owner of a piece of something or not. But these people in the business now, they think, okay, anybody in a position over me must either know more than I do or be an expert. And I mean, that means that all the writers in the WWE must be experts because they're telling the wrestlers what to say. And the wrestlers welcome that because they don't know how to say shit on their own. So they don't understand that these people don't know what to fucking do it either. And the more they do what these people tell them to do, the happier their employer may be with them, but the less they get over to the general wrestling fan population. Anyway, yeah, and that's when I saw Brandy sitting down with any wrestlers. It's not your place. The booker handles internal conflicts one way or another, good or bad. That's how it takes place. You don't send the wife of one of the EVPs over because they're all girls.
And not to disagree with your overall premise and the problems you have with the idea that they're exposing the business in this way, not to excuse that. But it would be one thing if it was Cody talking to a Lee Johnson or a Pillman Jr. or some young babyface. Ricky fucking Starks, the most arrogant guy that comes out there and acts all arrogant. We have to see him all weak and scared talking to Cody? Come on, what's the point of this?
Yeah, that was another good one. Yeah, the Starks is everybody is. They act like, number one, people don't want wrestlers to be real people, for fuck's sake. You can see real people all around you. They don't want their stars or their heroes or the villains or anybody to have all these problems that they've got with a crisis of confidence. And, I'm so anxious and I'm going to have a panic attack and I'm unsure of myself. What the fuck? Everybody's wishy-washy fucking pussies these days. And like when Jeff Hardy sees Brock Lesnar walk up to him in the promo, and apparently since Brock's beating the shit out of Roman Reigns, probably he's not mad at Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy's not got anything to do with him, but Jeff instead, hey, Brock, how you doing? Hey, Jeff, let me take this one. Jeff just goes, oh, shit, I'll just leave. But the problem is, especially with a lot of the AEW, well, I shouldn't say AEW, a lot of both companies' wrestlers, they're really all fucking panicked and anxious and fucking got their issues and their panties are in a bunch and their nerves are shot. Fuck. And I guess mine would be too if I was trying to recite lines somebody else had written for me and do stupid things that somebody else told me to do that I would never do if it was up to me. Maybe I would be, but there's a bunch of fucking nervous Nellies and basket cases around this whole fucking company, and all they want to do is talk about how we put this show on and we all work together and there's no conflict here. Nobody's going to get an actual real fight at a wrestling match. You know what? I just revealed the reason why that 10 million people used to watch this shit on Monday nights and now 2 million do. It's because they don't want anybody to think somebody's going to get in a real fight at a wrestling match. That's why there's nobody watching, because they don't think anybody's going to get in a real fight. Have we finished this program yet?
Rhodes to the Top we have finished, not the experience.
Yes. I'm talking about if we finished talking about this rotten, crummy television program.
I am going to watch it next week. I can't lie to you. I want to see, does Brandy get a hangnail? Does Cody have some kind of crazy adventure where he has to lend his life advice to someone to help them out?
I don't know. I think next week is when he gets spontaneous diarrhea.
I want to see if the Bucks and Omega. I want to see if we see the Bucks and Omega for a second on this show. That's what I want to see.
You know what? Let's dare everybody. If you are going to watch this, at least make something constructive out of it, and let's see if we ever do get a glimpse of either the Hardly Boys or Twinkle Toes even in the background on this program. Let's just see how long it takes and if it ever happens.
Hey, one last question about this. But the first episode obviously didn't tear down the house in terms of numbers, and it's been replayed nonstop or several times at least. Usually the first week for a show like this, the number will be better than week 2, week 3. Of course, it could always build an audience, and who knows, recover by week 5, but how long does TNT let this run? I mean, I gotta think people are going to be tuning out in droves.
What are the numbers on their other programs? Because
that's a good question.
They were happy with 800,000 people on fucking Wednesday night. So is it gotten so bad now that they're happy with 400,000 people watching a nationally televised cable program? We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
And by the way, for a lot of people say, well, you don't understand. Get with the times, Cornette. It's the modern days. People watch streaming and people watch this and people watch that. It's not just the TV show. Well, that must mean that the ratings for basketball and football and baseball and everything else are 20% of what they were 25 years ago. As I just mentioned, we've lost 8 million of the 10 million people watching wrestling on Mondays. So all those other sports have gone to a fifth of their previous audience also, right? Right?
Audiences across the board are down from what they were years ago because of how many channels and how many options there are, but I don't think anyone has had the percentage of drop that professional wrestling has.
So it's not that football is now being watched by 20% of the people, or baseball or basketball is just wrestling.
Again, I don't have numbers in front of me, but that's what I would think.
Well, there you go. Well, see? See
what?
Oh, I don't know. see, Ryder. Oh, see what you have done. You know what? I'll tell you what that Brandy, with her giant bulbous belly, should have done while she was pregnant. She should have ate a better breakfast every morning, and she wouldn't have been nauseated, and she wouldn't have been sick, and she wouldn't have had to talk about that, and she wouldn't have had to talk about how far her hoo-ha was going to spread out, because she would be feeling good and looking good because she'd be eating a healthy breakfast, courtesy of the folks at Magic Spoon. No trashy, sugar-ridden, carb-ridden cereal and junk. No, it tastes as good as the junk, but it's healthy for you because it's only got 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories a serving. Keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb. If you want something that's friendly and free, well, it's friendly, but it's not free. You got to pay for it, but it's free of all those glutens and grains and soys. And right now you can build your own custom bundle from the different flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. And by the way, the cookies and cream and maple waffle were brought back. They were originally set out for a limited time only, sold out just like Cornette's collectibles. So now they're back forever, and they're delicious and indulgent. You got to try those. Anyway, if you go to magicspoon.com/Jim to grab your custom bundle, use the promo code Jim at checkout. You'll save $5 off the order. It's backed with the 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. They may ask you, did you watch Rhodes to the Top? And if you say yes, they may not give you your money back because that might be what made you ill. But nevertheless, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Jim. Use the code Jim to save $5 off at checkout. Boy, howdy, are these delicious cereals, but yet good for you. And they do not leave a nasty taste in your mouth like the Rhodes family reality programming.
You know, I actually thought that her nausea may have been caused by Cody's neck tattoo, and seeing that every morning first thing.
Boy, I tell you, that may be something. Can you imagine you turn over and all of a sudden it looks like a test pattern from a fucking a TV station on Pluto?
Why weren't they filming for that? That's what I wanted to see. You want to get me interested in the show? Show me Brandy Rhodes' reaction when Cody walked in with that tattoo.
Yes. There you see, they missed a golden opportunity. They probably weren't shooting then.
Show me Brandy and Cody in the back when Cody's dog, who he was pretending was a service animal, got spooked by the fireworks. That's what I want to see. Why wasn't that on camera?
Well, what are you doing these days there, feller, over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network and your various podcasts this week?
Another action-packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. We've been working on a lot of different things, so stay tuned in the next few weeks. More announcements about some more projects. But in terms of current shows, check out the latest episode of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam at McAdamPod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. This week, part 2 of John's look at the Donahue episode dealing with the WWE scandals of 1992. Check this out. Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Also want to make mention of the latest episode of Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry. It is the 4-year anniversary of Breaking Kayfabe. The boys review Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat from WrestleMania 3. Also talk with Roy Lucier and Lou Kippelman about CAC and so much more at BaldwinPod.com or search for Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! Thank you, big boy. Of course, I've been promising this show. Unfortunately, the art situation delayed things a little bit this week. A lot of extra work we've had to do, but the show is just about done. It should be out imminently. Brian Solomon with some incredible stories about his time working for the WWE, as well as The Sheik. We have Howard Baum on Burt Prentice, Tim Hornbaker on Buddy Rogers, the Top 10, and so much more. And of course, the Lights Out or Lights On segment dealing with some of the behind-the-scenes workings in the world of wrestling podcasts and Arcadian Vanguard. Find out why I am so disappointed. You know, Jim, one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made recording a show, and it hit me afterwards. I had Stephen P. New on the line for it, so he could hear everything I say and tell me whether or not I am exposed to anything. Happy to say I'm in the clear.
Yes, because you don't often expose yourself, but when you do, it's a big one.
It's a big one, but I'm in the clear. But I should have asked when he's on the air, am I allowed legally to put a bounty on a wig? Am I allowed? I really don't know how bounties work when it's an inanimate object on someone's head that looks fucking ridiculous. But hear what I have to say about the situation with Ron Fuller Welch and the Studcast, as well as John Arezzi and his old show, Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, and some of the shenanigans he tried to get involved with. Hear all of that and so much more. Go through the archive today, 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. New episode out imminently. The Mothership!
Well, one news story that you're not going to break on the 605 or any other show, it's already out there. I'm pissed about this. I didn't want this news coming out until we were ready to announce it, but it's already on the internet. An erstwhile reporter, apparently he's the Bob Woodward, the Carl Bernstein of his genre. A guy named, what is his name? Would help me with his name. I can't remember him. He's so unmemorable.
The tweet here is from someone named Brad Shepard.
Brad Shepard, whoever he may be, has unleashed the information on the world that he has heard from sources that I am going to AEW to manage FTR. Is that the report that I'm hearing? The news is out. He's broken it.
I saw this on Twitter yesterday because someone sent it to me, and here's the tweet. I'm told Jim Cornette is coming to AEW soon to do something with Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. Damn. And I must admit, Jim, after I saw that, I thought to myself, my God, I know every party involved in this, and I had no idea this was going on.
Well, we didn't want to tell you because you're such a blabbermouth.
He's got better sources than I do.
Well, of course he does, because he invents the sources along with the information.
That's right.
So he's talking to Winston Churchill every day. He's on the horn with Castro. I mean, he knows all the scoops. Somebody sent me that tweet, but since I think this guy, apparently I've blocked him in the past because I guess his reputation is he's a complete idiot that makes a bunch of shit up. But I couldn't see the tweet. What do you think about this, Cornette? And it was like, and then you told me about the Brad Shepard thing. But, well, I'm sorry to Mr. Shepard. But now since you've released this information, just like Vince does every time his plans get out, plans can change, and I've decided not to do it.
Oh, come on. Don't let this guy ruin what will be everyone's party.
No, I'm not. I'm going to let him ruin everybody's party because we didn't want it out. And now that it's out, a responsible, reliable source such as Brad Shepshit or whatever, now I've got to change the plans. I'm not doing it. You can't talk me into it. Or you can't talk me out of it, out of not doing it. Now, would that be talking me into doing it or talking me out of not doing it? Neither one. You can't do either one. I'm not doing it. And you can't make me. You can't make me. You can't make me.
I laughed my ass off when I saw this tweet.
What the fuck? Oh, my God. And, you know, it's like the people who call for the end of the world on December 21st, such and such year or whatever. And that comes and goes. And, but now you see, you don't read the old-fashioned calendars like that. It would really be January 13th if we were using the old calendar. That time comes and goes. Well, there's something else. So I'm sure this guy will be hanging on this story until we're all dead and gone. It's going to happen. There's just been a few snags. Anyway, speaking of snags, we hit a few on this program. I said at the top of the program that Dynamite goes from the penthouse to the outhouse and then back again. And that's what they did. I guess it's an improvement because we were getting no penthouse at all before. We had to make do with Playboy before they would even show pubic hair. We got no Penthouse.
No, we got Penthouse. He teams with Felix.
Well, I'm talking about Penthouse quality, not just Penthouse himself. But anyway, so maybe that's better than nothing because they're getting part of it now. So I guess we should be thankful for small favors. But this was the AEW Dynamite from September 29th, the long-awaited debut in Rochester. And I don't know that any other wrestling promotion or traveling entertainment of any kind has ever said, boy, we can't wait till we get to Rochester. So this was a first. And the show opened. And they've got people in the building, and they got all the lights and the blah, blah, blah. And they've got Jim Ross's voice. And suddenly, like Mussolini and Orphan Annie too, here comes Punk, and he's got the entrance, he's got the energy, he goes around the ring, and then comes back to the announce desk because he's going to sit in on color so that the announcers have time to set the scene and plug the John Huber Foundation, Brody Lee. They're doing very good things, contributing to various worthy causes in behalf of his name. There's nothing wrong with that at all. What's wrong came later in the program. But we go from CM Punk and his entrance. He's on color. We got a big building. We got big TV. Here comes Adam Cole's music. Did you hear what Adam Cole was announced at in terms of weight?
I did not.
202 pounds. All 202 pounds of Adam Cole came down the aisle. And yes, his real legitimate weight might be 191.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever. But 202 sounds better. And at least they're trying. And he does the Adam Cole baby. And then Jungle Boy comes out. Did you hear what Jungle Boy's weight was announced at?
I did not.
190 pounds. Enough to make him the underdog, but not so far down that he sounds like he's goddamn emaciated prison camp victim that just got sprung. And the people were singing his song. So they chanted for Punk and they cheered for Punk. They chanted Adam Cole, baby. They sing the song for Jungle Boy. This is great. The bell rings. Guess what they did? They locked up. There was a headlock and then an arm drag. They're having a wrestling match. Jungle Boy did one flip into an arm drag and Adam Cole bailed out and the people roared and chanted. Then Cole knocked, Jungle Boy was on the top. He was going to come off, but Cole knocked him off onto the floor and then went out. And guess what he did? He threw him back in the ring and continued the heat. Adam Cole shot Jungle Boy from corner to corner, gave him a turnbuckle. He sold it. Holy mackerel. That was so good he did it one more time. He sold it again. Then Jungle Boy fought back from underneath and started and blew his own comeback and made a big clothesline. And boom, they did the 1-2 with the forearms and kicks. And finally, Jungle Boy brainbustered Adam Cole, and both of them sold that. And there was more back and forth, but it was all serious. It made sense. It didn't bury the referee. They were having a wrestling match. And who can't see the difference in these matches? Jungle Boy, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, Twinkle Toes, Punk and Darby. Who can't see the difference between these and the messes that most of the indie guys that they've signed do on a weekly basis? How can you not see that?
I don't have an answer for that.
Make one up.
There are people who like that indie style, but I think we're seeing, and I think we've seen it the last few weeks with Punk versus Darby, and then Danielson versus Omega. And there's a place for genuine wrestling on these shows.
Because the people are into this. Cole hit, or I should say, fucking other dipshit, Jungle Boy, hit Cole with a big false finish, 2 count. And then, but there was a point where Adam Cole was trash talking Jungle Boy, and Jungle Boy came up and slapped him. A slap, got a big pop. Of course, then he did a reverse Hurricane Rana, which is just stupid and dangerous. And he gets a pop because it looks like it kills you. One of these days, it's going to. But then Jungle Boy hit a couple of quick false finishes, got a nice pop, but didn't rush afterwards because then they started doing the "This is awesome" chant. So they let that come up. Jungle Boy tried to do a dive out of the ring, but Cole foiled it with a kick that he almost got. As he jumped up and dropped, Cole was on the floor and he jumped up and drop kicked Jungle Boy as he was going to come through the ropes, and he almost got it, but it registered. And then Jungle Boy hit the Hurricane Rana where he vaulted over the top rope and took Cole off the apron to the floor with the Hurricane Rana, but they both sold that. And then finally Jungle Boy got up and tossed Adam Cole in, but as he came in, he leaped at him and ate a super kick. Boom. And then Cole hits the Panama Sunrise. 2 7/8. Cole looked shocked as shit. He had a great facial. Cole misses the knee. Jungle Boy gets a snare trap. Big pop. I wrote down, I'm writing in capitals because they were cooking here and the people were into it. And then Cole escaped and Jungle Boy went for the roll up. But they crowded referee Aubrey, and Cole did the fucking mule kick nut shot, which stunned Jungle Boy, and he hit him with the knee to the head. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. The heel cheated and beat the babyface. It was a great match. They didn't do a commercial break because it was the first match of the show. And this is what I've been saying. If Jungle Boy could have matches like this every week with guys like that, he would be a big star very soon, and he would learn to work. But he has as many of the goofy matches as he does this one, and I don't know if he's breaking all of his bad indie habits that way. But that's not only the benefit of bringing in Cole and Punk and all these guys for the name and for the fans they have, but also because they have the experience and the knowledge that they can have better matches than these other guys have ever had before and bring them up with them. And it's still serious, and there's no foolishness and obvious cooperation and the idiots like Cutlet and Knock It Off hanging around and etc. This was as good a match as you would have on any wrestling program. I don't know, what'd you think?
I thought it was a really good match. I thought it was a good idea to open the show with it. I thought, like you said, when the crowd reacts like that, it's easy to do less. We saw that with Danielson and Omega. The crowd was going crazy. They didn't have to go nuts yet. The crowd was really into this. Really good match. I actually enjoyed this more than the last few NXT Adam Cole matches, to be honest with you. Maybe it's because of the environment, because of the look, and because of the crowd, and also because of the opponent. And we've been both frustrated with the use of Jungle Boy ever since, what was it, was it the end of 2019 when they teased him and Jericho when Jericho was champion? And then it's kind of just start and stop with how they use him as a single. Yeah. And then they put him back in the team. It was a good match. Can't really say anything bad about this. And let me just, one other thing I will add.
Okay.
I said to you a few weeks ago that I remember when CM Punk did commentary on Raw years ago, and he was really good, and I almost didn't want him to return to the ring. He was great on commentary here this whole night. This whole night he was fantastic.
Because he's quick and he's got some good lines, and he doesn't make it sound like phony a wrestling announcer. He makes it sound like he's legitimately talking about something that's legitimately happening, and it's still colorful. But one thing you said, it's easy to not do much when the people are into it. It's also easier to get the people into it when you're not doing as much. When you've jump-started a match, had a 6-way or an 8-way at the start, fought on the floor, and used weapons by the time the bell rings, you've run off and left them anyway. So none of these other guys have got the picture yet that if you start telling them the story, they will get with it, and then you start taking them on the twists and turns, and they will get with what you're doing, and you can do less because they're reacting to it, rather than, we're going to go out there and do all this shit we've called ahead of time at 100 miles an hour, and we're going to not even paying any attention to the reactions we're getting at the time because we've already synchronized and memorized all this stuff in our head. And then they don't get half the response some of these things would because they don't stop to let the people breathe and react. It's just endless gymnastics. Anyway, so that was a great match, but the segment is not over yet because, oh no, suddenly the music starts playing. Beat your meat, beat your meat, beat your meat, beat your meat. And here comes the whole cast of Gilligan's Island, except for the skipper. Don Fallis was not there. We had the Hardley Boys with their phony hair. We had the No Good Brothers. We had Twinkle Toes. We had Cutlet and Knock It Off. And Carl Anderson started speaking because there was no Callis, so he, fucking introduced him. And then Adam Cole does a promo. And it was a serious promo. It was heelish. It was well spoken. It was well done. He's still thinking he's working for the company that has standards. Even though that he's standing in the ring with Cutlet and Knock It Off. And as soon as Cole finishes trying to draw some money for him, then they take over. Cutlet tries to speak. Pieface shuts him up. I can't remember whether it was Pieface or Twinkle Toe said, "Are you ready for the best promo in wrestling?" Smart talk. Mark talk. Then they give the microphone and Knock It Off so that he can do bad comedy. Then Twinkle Toes took over and did the phone sex voice. So Adam Cole has just had one of the better TV matches that they've ever had on their program. He's a brand new star coming in. He tried to be serious. And then they start doing the hijinks with the job guys. And then Twinkle Toes says he doesn't want a rematch. I'm not surprised. That would, if he did want a rematch, that'd kind of blow the logic of the whole thing. Not that they haven't done that before. But then here comes Bryan Danielson's music, and he gets a huge pop, and the whole place is doing yes, yes. And he does the promo from the ramp. Asks the fans, do you want a rematch? And they go, yes, yes, yes. And then he names him. And I got to admit, this did kind of tickle me. He named Kenny No Balls Omega. And the people were chanting, no balls, no balls. Although, let's be honest, Twinkle Toes does have balls. He's got 2 of them. And if you took both his balls and rolled them at a drinking straw, it'd look like 2 kernels of corn rolling into a storm drain. But he's got them. So then Danielson challenges any member of the Elite to a match on Rampage. But Twinkle Toes says, well, why are we fighting now? And Danielson says, okay, but then he calls out Christian Cage, Jungle Boy, Dino Douche, Frankie Kazarian, and when they come out, the heels bail and leave. And we're 30 minutes into the show, and except for the comedy with the heel stooges and the Elite, and even not all of that segment, because some of it had actual talent in it, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, it's been a good show. It's been a mainstream, professional-looking fucking program to that point. Did I miss anything with my summation of all that crap?
After you put it over like that, and then you say all that crap. No, I think you hit on most of the big things.
Well, I'm talking about the crap with the, the comedy and etc.
See, you and I, and again, I never will dismiss why you think the way you do, but obviously you and I think differently about Omega. I'm going to say the same thing I said to you last time. I think Omega, if it was just Omega and Callis and Cole and the Bucks even, that'd be fine. Everything else, all the superfluous crap that is bad comedy, the Good Brothers and Cutlet and Nakazawa, if they were gone, this would all be so much more palatable because then they would just be douchebags. As opposed to douchebags doing really, really awful comedy and acting like children.
And looking unprofessional with guys that couldn't make it in a real wrestling promotion. And suddenly they're there for whatever reason.
Adam Cole, great promo. Danielson, super over. Yeah. Getting around that intellectual property thing by letting everyone else chant yes. Very smart. Stole my promo. You'll all hear it on 605. I do a promo about this one ballless motherfucker. The ballless one, he's known as by many of us. And then Danielson does it. For the record, I recorded that segment, as you've been hearing me talk about it, weeks ago. So when you hear that, he stole my promo. I didn't steal his.
They listen to the shows.
Oh, I know. They listen to the shows. Oh, yeah.
All right. Moving on quickly. Alex was with the Lucha Brothers and Tony Schiavone, and Alex did not speak. Andre Olio and his assistant came in, and they didn't have subtitles. And he spoke to the Lucha Brothers, and the Lucha Brothers spoke back, and you couldn't understand a single word anybody said.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I like the Lucha Brothers. I like them better in some situations than others. I love Alex. I have cut Andrade some slack. This isn't working for me. I'm not. Everything he's involved with.
A little pitchy for me, dog.
It just feels like it gets dragged down to that minor league level. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not feeling it with Andrade at all yet. And I don't know if I ever will. Miro turned around. Miro sucked the first several months. And then
that has been an amazing rejuvenation, hasn't it?
It has.
Because he was probably I won't say he was the worst wrestler because he's not the worst wrestler, but he was probably the worst waste of any kind of talent by making him the friend of Pip Sabian and the best man at the wedding and the video game nerd and etc. And I wrote him off for good because that was so bad. But now if they're picking up new fans that didn't see that shit, he's got him a little second lease on life. But anyway, Matt Sydal and Dante's Inferno are a regular tag team now, or Dante Martin, right? Martin. Against Cody and Shoddy. Cody as tag team partners with Shoddy, with Brandy and Arn in the corner, against Matt Sydal and Dante, and all of them are baby faces, so why would they book this match?
They're not all baby faces.
Matt Sydal and Dante Martin are baby faces.
Yeah.
Shoddy Lee's a baby face.
That's
Arn's
right.
a baby. Cody is nominally a baby face.
No.
Everybody hates Brandy.
I think Cody's a heel.
Well, Cody's a heel in the way that they boo him, but all right. Anyway, after the preposterously overblown entrance, I wrote, why is Brandy there and why is she in costume when she's not wrestling? She got dressed in wrestling tights to come out and stand in the corner and be on TV. I fast-forwarded the match because I didn't care and I was in a large group there. But basically, Lee Johnson won it for the team because Cody didn't have his shit together. And that's where the good part of this came up. And the match wasn't insulting or anything. It wasn't that interesting. But Tony Schiavone gets in the ring with Arn and Cody and Lee, and people are booing the shit out of Cody until he called Malachi Black out. And then they cheered for that. They wanted to see him get shit kicked out of him again by Malachi Black. But Arn shuts him up. And for once, Arn fired up. And remember, I've said the only couple of times he's done any kind of a promo, they gave him some shit that obviously he was trying to make sense of it himself, and it didn't come off like an Arn Anderson promo. But here he just said, he basically told Cody he didn't have the killer instinct. And he made himself multiple memes on the internet when he said, the difference is between me and you, Cody, if somebody at the gas station pulls a gun on you or tries to take your car, you just say, here, go ahead. Whereas I'd pull out my Glock and spray their brains all over the concrete. So now he's on Twitter. He was Armed Anderson. He was Arn says, Glock 45 says, I just whipped your ass. I mean, everything. But Arn took old Shoddy Lee and walked off and left Cody standing there. It was a good promo because finally Arn had something to talk about. But now what is this now? Cody's lost because he's not focused, or he's on too many game shows, or the reality show, or what the fuck's going on here?
Wouldn't it be funny if he disappears off TV again before they settle this? We don't know what happened. He got booked on another show somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, everyone liked the promo. I thought it was a bit ridiculous going to the gun thing, but I understand why everyone liked it. I did see the one clip that people were sending around of Cody mouthing the words that Arn's saying.
I saw that too on Twitter. And how would you do that?
If you knew what he was going to say.
But I guarantee you that Arn Anderson, they may have handed him something written down. He didn't memorize it word for word. He's doing the promo. I either that or maybe Arn's the only one of us whose memory gets better when he gets older. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll start cheering Cody as soon as he starts healing. They just want to boo him when he's a babyface. I don't know. Or maybe they want to boo him as long as he has that rotten reality show.
If he went all the way right now as a heel, I think it would be great. I think the fans are ready for it. And I think if he uses some of his actual animosity and anger in it, it could be really good. I always thought Dusty would have been great as a heel in 89. I thought the people may have been ready for it. It would have been great. I think Cody should go heel and go all the way heel. I think Brandy's already there. Come to your wife, Cody. Just go to your wife. And I think he should embrace it. And you know what? That could be the one thing that makes him stand out more than anyone else there right now, is he could be an over-the-top heel because everyone believes it. But we'll see what happens.
Oh, anyway, all right, next. I know why they did this, but Jesus Christ on a cracker. Moxley and Kingston and Darby Allin and Sting, they've all got to come through the crowd because that's Moxley's goofy entrance. So now all of them have to come through the crowd. And they have a 6-man with job guys, Anthony Green and Bear Country, with Sting in the corner and Moxley, Kingston, and Allin. And I know why they did. It's a way to get 4 of their babyface names on the show, but Jesus, Pete. They can't even, Moxley, he's the one to blame here. He can't even have a match with job guys and have a match. They jump-started it jumpstart a match with job guys on the floor. And while Darby Allin and Anthony Green were in the ring trying to do wrestling spots, everybody else was fighting on the floor with the referee paying no attention to what was going on the floor. The cameras weren't even shooting it. Just every once in a while they're shooting what's going on in the ring, you see somebody throwing punches on the other side of the aisle. So the babyfaces won this, obviously, and then they throw Anthony Green to Sting, and he gives the Scorpion Death Drop. It was an excuse to put the babyface on the show, but why do you have to have 6-way chaos in a match with job guys, and then it looks like every other fucking match? And he's incapable, Moxley, of having any other kind of match whatsoever. So that was, it wasn't horrible because it was names, but it wasn't a good match. But then at 9:00 at the top of the hour, standing in the ring is Matt Hardy and Private Party and Jack Evans and Angelico and the Butcher and the Baker. Jesus Christ, you would think that suddenly you've just seen CM Punk, you've just seen Bryan Danielson, you've seen Adam Cole, you've seen Sting, now you'd think, well, what? Wait a minute, did they put some local wrestling program on with all these job guys? I recognize Matt Hardy. And they did a live promo, which I fast-forwarded through because why? And then suddenly Pockets' music played, and out came the mascot, and then here came the entire Dork Order, and they decided to have a 16-man tag team match in honor of Brody Lee, and Brody Lee's son is back under the mask on television. And so I'm not going to piss people off by saying again that it would be wonderful if they got the child a college scholarship thing, and it's wonderful that they're doing a John Huber Foundation to help people. But when they get 16 job guys on national television managed by an 8-year-old child in a mask to have a 16-man tag match just to give tribute to somebody, it's really noticeably amateurish. They've gotten some things right lately, but this is like the early days when it all looked like an outlaw show. So I skipped it. No more to be said. Do you care to comment, or do you want to get in trouble?
I'll just say I obviously didn't care much for any of this because the Dark Order and the Hardy family are both channel changers to me. I don't have a problem with using Brody Lee Jr. here because it's Rochester and it's centered around his dad.
But it's a national TV show that's going everywhere, and especially new viewers that they have picked up 200,000 or 300,000 since they got punked. Are they going to go, what the fuck? They've got a child out there. This can't be serious. That's my problem. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nah, that's pretty much all my thoughts.
Well, guess who's back? Lio Rush. He is unretired again. And he's retired at least twice, right, from wrestling. Every time he either gets fired or last time he got hurt, he decided to retire. Then he said he'd come back and fulfill his commitments when he got well, and then he's going to retire again. Now he's back, signed with another company. It's not like there's been popular demand, an outcry from the populace of the country, bring back Lio Rush. But he's unretired more than Terry Funk did. And now, apparently, he's rich. He's made money on investments. He's made money on leveraged buyouts. He's now LBO Rush, leveraged buyout Rush. So we're expected to believe that this mental case is the Wolf of Wall Street on top of everything else. And that was still the funniest thing. Whatever he did stupid a couple of years ago, because he constantly does stupid things and then he quits the business and he comes back. He's one of the guys that I think that took the bump off the roof and popped up and didn't sell it on one of the outlaw shows. Whatever the case, he's an idiot. He wanted to be a wrestler at 5'3" and 120 pounds. I said he could be $1 million manager because he can talk. He's got a slappable face. When he was with Bobby Lashley, if they'd have made him a manager, he'd have been the hottest thing in the world, but he insists on wrestling, and it's embarrassing because he's the size of a small child. But a couple of years ago on Twitter, he did something or said something else stupid, and I said, look at this guy. What a fucking mental case he is. And he actually tweeted me back and said, are you saying that a spokesman for mental health such and such is a mental case? I said, yeah, I guess I fucking did. And that just tickled me. I had no idea that he was a spokesperson for mental health. He just looked to me like a person that has little. So every time I get the chance, I like to call Lio Rush a mental case because that's what he is. He's a fucking idiot. But anyway, he's back. Then, did you have any comments on the LBO Rush promo? Are you going to leverage his buyouts?
I have enjoyed Lio Rush considerably more than you. I even have liked him in the ring in NXT. I don't know what this was. Of all the ways to bring this guy in, this is the least believable and the stupidest. So it must have been his idea, and Tony just said okay.
And also, isn't it a ripoff of Happy Corbin? Because he just became, or Cameron Grimes. How many of these guys are going to fucking become rich and still insist on wrestling and getting beat up when they have millions and millions of dollars?
Fucking Matt Hardy went from being some demented time-traveling wizard to being some millionaire or something. I don't know what the hell's going on.
When you don't know what to do with anybody else, make them a millionaire.
Leveraged buyout. By the way, not just like I'm a millionaire. Leveraged buyout. Mitt Romney over here is coming over to take over a business? Give me a break. Why would you give him this gimmick? Unless he came up with it and you said, you know what? I want to see this guy on the show. I'll let him do his leverage buyout thing.
So we got that to look forward to.
We sure do.
FTR did a promo and Dax tore it up. And the point of it is, now you can tell that perhaps Tony has realized, well, I hired the greatest tag team in wrestling a year and a half ago and booked them almost completely backwards, where they came in, barely won the belts, held them long enough to lose to the Young Bucks in the Dream Tag match, and then they've never occupied the same space again. It was all a plot on part of the Hardley Boys to bury their competition that showed them up and illustrated they don't know what the fuck they're doing. But now maybe Tony has said, well, guess we ought to do something with these guys. So now they're getting some wins on TV over the last few weeks, and they're actually getting promos. And guess what? Sounded like serious men speaking. They're refocused, and they're coming for everybody, and hopefully their actions from this point out will back that up. But be thankful for small favors. And then we go to the ring for Dan Lambert and America Top Team. And the promo on Jericho. And Dan, if you're listening, you're going too fast. You're coming up with some witty material, but you're reciting lines because you're just reading it out. Boom, 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 staccato bursts. Let it feel the words, mean the words. Slow down and let the crowd respond to each thing. Because the crowd just starts at one point chanting, "Shut the fuck up." He's got some heat, but he's just, do you see what I'm saying? He's just running through it like it's, I'm reciting these words. I want to get all this out because it's good material I came up with.
I have not been a fan of Dan Lambert here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's getting old because
it's fake as shit.
Well, it's fake.
This guy's out there with an AEW microphone cutting a Jim Cornette wannabe promo. And he's just trying to get out line after line. He's with people that no one cares about. Then they bring out fighters. Unless you tell a lot of those fans there who the fighters are, they may not even know who those fighters are. And he's just doing this shtick promo. I'm sorry. This guy was in MLW. This guy was in Impact. I think this is minor league shit. And that's just me.
It's getting old because it's not going anywhere. It's the same thing. The first couple of weeks, okay, I didn't see. Remember, I said I don't really see what the point is of letting him come out and tell the truth on their program unless they intend to do something about minimizing the, things that he's talking about, such as the childish cosplay wrestlers. But now he's coming up with like I said, the material, but he's reading it to them. He's reciting it. Slow down, mean it, feel it. Then Scorpio Sky talked, and people whatted him to death. And then the other page got on, and he tries way too hard. So between Lambert doing the same thing he's been doing and not being convincing with it, especially after the promo that he gave on some podcast or interview last week where he exposed himself, and not in a helicopterish way, when he said, well, I really believe some of the things that my character on AEW says. Well, fuck. So it's getting old. Sky, they didn't care because they were whatting him to death. And the other page was trying so hard to talk over the people and yell at them to convince them that he was over that I'm surprised he didn't fucking pop blood vessels in his eyes. But at least the heels got time to talk, and there was no schmaz afterwards. So be thankful for small favors. This hasn't been the worst program.
It's a step up from the Hardy Family Office or whatever the fuck. I know what you think about Ethan Page. I think Ethan Page is a good promo, and he looks like a star standing there. I know why you don't like him, and I know why you're not going to like him. Scorpio Sky getting whatted like that, that's a sign. Don't give this guy any more fucking mic time, and no one gives a shit about any of this. And look, Jericho has an obsession with some of the things you've said. This is his way of getting that feud with you.
So that he can beat me in absentia.
That's right. And Dan Lambert's tied with MMA guys. Maybe Jericho to waste Mike Tyson. Maybe they'll bring Tyson back and tie him with Jericho again and get him in this. It'll be another program that in the end won't be very good, and Jericho will probably try to sell it to Ethan Page or Scorpio, like, I'm helping you guys, even though Scorpio's not that young either. But this is just not good. This, like I said, feels like it's on the same level as Hardy Family Office and Dark Order.
Yeah. Scorpio Sky, I think, is a tremendous athlete and an in-ring talent as a babyface. And as a babyface, he wouldn't have to cut stellar promos. He could get by. But if they wanted a top African-American singles babyface, he's got all the tools. He's got experience. He can work. He's not a fireball promo, and I don't see him as a heel. So I don't know what's going on here. But you know what? At least we got good news. Next week is Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb, and that means Serena's back.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually really looking forward to that. And it was a good little package to build it up, too.
Well,
you don't like Shida. You can get past that.
I'm glad you like that little package. What? What's the matter with you?
Nothing's the matter with you.
All right. So next was the Bunny and Penelope pit stop against Ty Conti and Anna Jay and more Dork Order shit. And they did a jump start to a girls tag match, and I fast forwarded it. And that's all we need to say about that. Another match that we can't wait to see on the Friday Night Rampage that we're going to be talking about on this week's drive-thru, folks. Apparently, it's going to be Jane Cargill versus Thunder Rosa versus Nyla Rose. No disqualification. I wouldn't skip that for $1 million because I feel bad for Thunder Rosa, but I can't wait to see what kind of abomination this will be when you got Green, you got Grumpy, and you've got Talent all in the same match in AEW with no disqualification. Who knows what? And Punk's been listening to the program. He paraphrased me. He said, in 3 ways, somebody always gets left out and somebody always gets their feelings hurt.
I'm sure it's just from experience, not anything to do with Jim Cornette. He doesn't listen to this show. He's a busy man, but
I've said the same thing. Well, it's common knowledge to anybody who's been in that position that would be a thing that you would say. So
I agree with you. I feel bad.
It's just news to all the AEW fans.
That's right. And like you, I feel bad for Thunder Rosa because she's one of the most talented women there in the ring and as a promo, and she's over and she's great. But I've had such a perverse joy in everything I've seen from Jade Cargill from that first promo. I thought about all the different matches we could see and what would happen in the ring. I never even thought about the idea of no DQ. I never even thought about the idea of her getting a chair shot or something. I hope this is the greatest thing ever. But it's taped, so it probably won't be.
Yeah, because they'll fix anything really bad. But anyway, MJF was next for his promo, and Wardlow continues to dress up and looks like something. MJF mentioned the 4 pillars of the company, AEW: Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and himself, the new young stars that are going to carry the company 10 and 20 years forward. And of course, his point is MJF does, to be the AEW World Champion. He mentioned that he has Bruce Pritchard on speed dial. And I can only think that he will probably never use that number, but he's using it as a ploy to get heat. But MJF would probably want to go to the WWF right now about like I want to go to the dentist and get a root canal.
And if he's been around Bruce, he realizes that he'll never want to talk to Bruce.
Well, only if Bruce is trying to get him on board so he can sell some advertising. But anyway, nevertheless, I know Bruce's phone number by heart. I had his number as soon as he walked in the door. Anyway, so Darby Allin's music plays, and he comes out, and they do the face-to-face, and MJF cuts the promo on him. And then Darby actually verbally fired up at him a bit and had some bass in his voice. And I thought, okay, now Darby's not going to be the sullen, non-speaking, mumble-mouthed, blah, like Jungle Boy, like all the young guys, like everybody under 25 years old in this world apparently is now, just a mealy-mouthed nitwit. He's firing up at MJF. They're going to get in a fucking Donnybrook here. So MJF tells Darby Allin straight to his face, I know why you're straight edge. You're straight edge because you rode in a car with your drunk uncle who got in a car crash and the wrong guy died. And this, by the way, is true. Apparently, Darby Allin has said that the reason why he doesn't do any drugs or drink is because he was at a car wreck with his drunk uncle driving and the uncle got killed. MJF says that to Darby Allin. And was Darby Allin's response, fuck you, bam? Or fuck you, pow? Or fuck you, kicking the nuts? Or fuck you, slapping the face? Or any of the other responses that you would naturally do if somebody said that to you? No. Darby Allin looked at MJF, who just said the wrong guy died when your drunk uncle crashed the car. He said, go ahead. Say everything. What, you got some more to say? You're not going to break me mentally. What the and the MJF just looks at him and says, what the fuck? And they leave. And that was flatter than 4 o'clock. When did the baby faces start being such gutless, ballless cowards It was 2 weeks ago, MJF said to Pillman, your mother should have swallowed you. And that didn't instantly provoke a fight. And now he says to Darby Allin, yeah, fuck your uncle. Darby Allin says, you're not going to break me mentally? I mean, it may work for the AEW fans that don't think that people punch other people in the face. But if a babyface in any era of wrestling, in any location, had taken a talking to like that and just said, oh, keep going. You're not going to bother me. That would have been the death of him. Nobody'd ever believe in him again. Why would this guy say, you're not going to break me mentally? You're just going to stand there and talk about me and my family like a piece of shit, and I'm going to do nothing about it. Was that what you saw?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, part of Darby's character is that he reacts weirdly to things, and he's a weird guy. And they explained a little bit of his background here. I wasn't familiar with his background before this, other than his that show where he ran away from the woman he was sleeping with because the bugs were trying to get him, whatever that was.
Sex sent me to the ER.
That's what it was.
That was a work. We found out that was a work. He didn't actually have sex.
You know, I like a lot of this, but to me it goes back to something we talked about with the Punk debut promo, where simplicity is the best. And I think this could have been streamlined a bit to get to him pissing off Darby and Darby hitting the ring. Whether Darby should have hit him or not, I don't know. I mean, MJF and Wardlow hatched a little plan quickly and left, and we don't know where Sting is, so we'll see what happens there. But I don't know. I like the idea of MJF feuding with Darby, but it could have been streamlined. I guess that's the big thing.
Well, I would have gone with what they did and been fine with it, except these gutless baby faces. And when MJF then was shocked that he didn't provoke a fight and left the ring, I didn't understand that reaction, because if I tell some sorry sack of shit that I'm cussing out, yeah, and fuck your dead uncle, and he doesn't do anything, well, then I'm going straight, and your father sold secrets to the Nazis in World War II, and your grandmother sucked dicks for dimes in dive bars. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay there, because obviously this guy's scared of me and is not going to fight.
Have you ever seen someone, I've seen it happen a few times. I've seen it happen in baseball. A couple of the catchers, I think Yadier Molina it happened to. Have you ever seen a guy, when they really get upset because you say something about their family or their mother, like how they react? Like when the person who really does get mad, they lose their shit.
Yeah.
I've seen it in person. I've seen it happen to people. We never see that here. Pillman Jr. wants to high-five people, and Darby's going to brood. No matter what, Darby's going to brood.
But I've seen responses when people say the wrong things to people in the wrong particular day. I've been involved in some of those responses. I was standing with the Harris boys in Barberville, Kentucky one night. We're watching the matches from the end of the bleachers, right? And this fucking teenage guy, I don't know how, he was 16, 17 years old, whatever, some redneck from fucking Corbin, comes all the way to the end of the bleachers where nobody was to stick his head down near me. He was up on the bleachers and we're standing on the floor, so he stuck his head down over no, not over the rail, but near the rail on the end of the bleachers and said, "Hey, Cornette, you suck." Now, what he didn't know was I'd had a real rough drive up there, and it wasn't the best house, and I hadn't had a lot of rest, and I was in a grumpy mood. So when he said, "Hey, Cornette, you suck," I just reached up instantly and grabbed him around the fucking neck. And because my hand was grabbing him around the neck through the fucking bars of the railing on the end of the bleachers, he couldn't pull me through the fucking bars to get away, and I couldn't get him through the bars, but I wasn't letting go of his neck, and I had my fucking fingertips around each side of his goozle pipe. So I said, "Would you care to rescind that goddamn statement?" And he's, yes, and then I let him go. And then he scurried on off. When you say shit to people to their face that they're not going to like, and you know they're not going to like it, then you need to be prepared for them to fucking snatch you around your goozle pipe. But none of these baby faces do that these days.
I do want to say, though, the prospects of Darby versus MJF is something I'm excited about.
Yes, I think that'll be a good match and a good way to, again, to elevate Darby. Just got finished with Punk. Now he's good with MJF. But, of course, obviously MJF needs to go over because he's a single main event waiting to happen whenever they figure that out. Anyway, we have come to the main event on this program. And so far, except for the 22-man tag match in your squeaky chair, things haven't been too bad. And for the TV title, and I know you like Miro more than I do, and I like Sammy, but I wasn't holding out a lot of hope for this. Miro and Sammy Guevara for the TV title. And it was probably the best match Miro's had on this television. Of course, again, it's faint praise, but it was very good. He's a monster now. He opened up aggressive. He kicked the shit out of Sammy. And he's a big beast that exerts his will on people and has a grumpy demeanor. I don't know. It's almost like they brought his twin brother in to be the video game playing idiot. This is a completely different guy. Why didn't this guy show up first? He would be a lot better place right now than he is on the roster if this had been the guy we saw the first 6 months. But anyway, at one point, Sammy did that. Did you see the crossbody over the top spot where they both went over the top? And Sammy had a lot of balls because the way Miro took that almost killed them both. He didn't hook the rope. He just jumped over sideways, and Sammy was on top of him and went all the way over without grabbing anything. But anyway, he got heat on Sammy through most of the thing, kicked the shit out of him. Sammy sold great. Miro one time missed a charge, took a big bump over the top. He's reckless, but if he's like Steiner taking bumps. Remember the way Rick Steiner used to take bumps where he was just convinced he was invulnerable and couldn't be hurt, so he just launched himself at shit? Buzz Sawyer, too. Sammy hit one big dive in this match, and the people chanted, "Holy shit." Because they hadn't seen dives all day. Have you noticed we haven't talked about dive, dive, dive? They went back and forth, good stuff. For whatever reason, Miro flipped out and took all 4 of the top turnbuckle pads off. And I wasn't sure because if you take a pad off, you're generally going to use the buckle. How did he think he was going to use all 4 buckles? I don't know. But Sammy got back up and ended up kicking Miro headfirst into the turnbuckle, the uncovered buckle, then hit a finish on him, and then went to the top and hit a double flipping cannonball off the top. And he landed square in Miro's nuts. And you could see bowed up in half, Miro did. You could see the face, right? Oh! And he pinned him 1, 2, 3. Sammy's the new champion. 30 seconds later, they would have been off the air if they'd have gone any longer. So they almost didn't get it, but they got it in. And it was Miro's best match that he's had, I think, that I've seen. And so, penthouse, then they went to the outhouse in the middle, and then they ended up back in the penthouse. Not a bad show. Not as good as the other week, but certainly not the dreck that we got used to. What did you think about Miro?
Well, it hit me during this match. I almost wish there was another singles championship now because I hate the fact they took this belt off Miro. He's come into his own as TNT champion. He's fantastic as a beast. He is one of those guys I think could use a belt. There are some guys who don't need belts. I think the belt helped legitimize him, actually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have taken it off him here. I know why they did, and Sammy is super over, and they really want to go further with him. I mean, there was a reason that MJF name-dropped Sammy when he was talking about the pillars of AEW, which is a throwback to, of course, All Japan. But I don't know. I hated the fact that he took the belt off Miro. He was really coming into his own as TNT champion. His promos are weird and different, yet intriguing. He comes across like a maniac that'll kill people. I don't know. I mean, good match. I'm not taking anything away from the match, and I like Sammy Guevara. He's very talented, but I actually have finally really gotten into Miro, and I wouldn't have taken the belt off him.
Yeah, and again, I'm just, who thought that was a good idea? This guy can talk like this, work like this, and give off this aura. But when they first brought him in, it couldn't have, if it was Miro's idea, what is he, crazy? Well, I can do this, but I'm instead going to be an idiot sidekick to a goofy child and be the best man at his wedding and play video games. If that was his idea, then he's insane. If it was Tony Khan's, then Miro couldn't say, but Tony, I am a beast who does this and this and this, and you want me to be an idiot playing video games with job guys. How did that? I thought the guy was useless, because why would you present anybody with any talent like they did him for the people to see him first? Well, I can't get my head around this. You can do this, but we're going to present you as this. I still don't know. I still can't get it. Anyway, how many programs did we watch? We watched Dark Side of the Ring. We watched Smackdown. We watched NXT. We watched Dynamite. Now we're going to be watching goddamn, well, I hope Fatu and Hammerstone will be good. That'll be a palate cleanser for some of this other corporate wrestling.
But that's next week here on this show. For the drive-thru, we're only going to be reviewing Rampage and then questions from the listeners.
Yes, because we're backed up with questions. It's what we are.
You had me at backed up.
And we're gonna give ourselves a podcast version of a colonic, and we're gonna expunge all the backup with all the questions this week on the drive-thru, right?
Well, I mean, we'll still piss off someone because we didn't get their question on the air, but yes, we're going to try to do that.
Yes. And then next week we'll be back with more of these programs and Dark Side and MLW and so much more and even less. Are we done here today?
You betcha.
You betcha, Red Rider. All right, folks. Remember, JimCornette.com is working. And you can see everything, but you may not be able to buy everything past the next few days. If you haven't already made your order, do it now for Christmas, because I'll be closed at least until then trying to fill all this other stuff. JimCornette.com. Until then, for Brian, say goodbye, Brian.
Goodbye, Brian.
I'm Jim. Thank you. Fuck you. And bye-bye, everybody.